This episode is sponsored by Audible. Are you craving your next action-packed adventure? Why not dive into an exciting new audiobook? With Audible, they deliver thrills of all kinds, from gripping suspense to spine-tingling horror. And with over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and originals all in one easy app, you're bound to find something you love that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So whether you want to revisit an old story or find a brand new one, Audible has you covered. New members can try Audible now for 30 days when you visit audible.com/command or text command to 500-500.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we are continuing our conversation about Tarkir Dragonstorm.
One of my favorite planes in all of Magic.
It's fun to be back.
Yeah, I love it.
Familiar place, looks like Magic, feels like Magic. We got dragons all over the place.
Yeah, we played our company pre-release yesterday, and I gotta say, I just had a big smile on my face the whole time.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, there's something about like the nostalgia of the place. It's been a long time since I felt that nostalgia about, one of the planes and sets, because this is a place we lived on for a full year.
Yeah.
And it was right when we started the Command Zone. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited.
It's cool to be back. We got a lot of exciting cards that we're going to talk about today. A lot of cool cards. Everything we're talking about is for your 99. We can't talk about it all, but if you want to pick up any of the cards that we talk about in this episode, go over to cardkingdom.com/command. They've got a huge selection of singles, sealed product, everything you need under the sun. Tarkir has some very cool new cards, of course, but there's also some very fancy fetch lands that have like dragon scale stuff on them.
Yep.
They're really cool.
Oh, the dragon scale foiling is pretty sweet.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Did you see one in person?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're so cool.
Yeah, they look great.
But Card Kingdom's the best because if you're looking for that specific card, you're like, I want the Arid Mesa in the dragon scale foiling for my dragon deck. You know that you can get as many of those specific cards that you're looking for in one place. Huge inventory goes a long way when you're shopping for tiny pieces of cardboard. I just always know that the cards that I order from Card Kingdom are going to show up on time and safely, which is a big deal when you buy as much Magic cards stuff as I do.
Truth.
It's so much. I have so much to store right now, and more showed up yesterday. I'm like, who did this?
Who ordered all this stuff?
Who did this to me?
Did that, yeah.
Anyway, you can support the show and me so I can buy more Magic cards at cardkingdom.com/command.
This is definitely what Rachel needs in her
That's
life.
what I need. More Magic cards.
And once you get those cards, you want to keep them protected. We've got a lot of value tied up in our collections. Ultra Pro is the game accessories brand that we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you find all kinds of cool stuff that will help you organize your cards. There's card sorter trays. We have multiple of those in the office now. They're very, very nice when you're organizing. Yeah. But they have deck boxes, sleeves, playmats. They have all the Tarkir themed stuff right now. They even have apparel. Actually, we are both
we're rocking it today.
Shirts that we got from Ultra Pro. I've got the Mardu Zergo one, and you've got the Dragon Planeswalker symbol.
This is the set symbol, yeah. So this is from the MTG Pro shop. It's also Ultra Pro.
Yeah, which is affiliated with Ultra Pro. So they've got all kinds of stuff. Again, ultrapro.com/command. If you're looking for any kind of game accessories, anything to make yourself look cooler or your battlefield, you can find it at ultrapro.com/command.
All right. And the final way to support us is directly by going to patreon.com/commandzone. You get to join our community. You get to support the show. You get access to game nights and extra turns a day early without ads. You get to be a part of our final line of defense against little mistakes in gameplay.
Oh, yeah. We rely on our patrons to help check some of the gameplay videos, and they catch rules mistakes that we can fix sometimes and things like that.
Yeah. Well, they're like, actually, this is the wrong version of this.
Or just editorial mistakes. Sometimes
you're like,
you're like, you showed the board there, but it's clearly from the previous turn because this is, and we're like, oh, crap, whoops.
We totally did.
Yeah.
So you can join our community and be a part of our Discord, our Patreon. It's a really great place to just talk about new Magic cards as they come out. You can ask questions of Josh, Jimmy, me, any of the members of our team. If you have questions about behind the scenes stuff, there's a specific place to do that. It's really great. Plus, at certain tiers, you get access to exclusive content like Turn Talk, or we just have a conversation after a game of extra turns and talk about how our decks perform, changes that we'll make, or like, wow, that card was sweet, or if there was one important decision.
I like the difficult moments where people sort of lay out like, well, here's what I ended up doing, but here's what I had and what I was thinking, and you can kind of see their thought process of like what was important to them threat assessment wise. I learn a lot from those. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Just hearing other people think through plays, you're like, oh, I wouldn't think like that. Maybe I should. Yeah. Yeah. It gives you a real perspective on what happened in the game you were just in or the game you just watched. Yep. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode. And this episode is dedicated to Jan Michael Gagnon. Thanks, Jan Michael. Yeah, you rock. Okay, let's get into it here. In the 99 analysis for Tarkir Dragonstorm. I always want to call it Dragonstorm Tarkir for some reason. Yeah. You know what? Dragonstorm's such a sick name. I love that this set is like does encourage you to storm off with 6-drop dragons. Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff that's like cast a bunch of things and then have a big dragon, and you're like, that's cool. Yeah, the dragon part of it does feel like it came to the forefront, and you know, even in the pre-release, there was a lot of dragons flying around, which is sweet. No matter what, Jimmy was very happy. Yeah. No matter what color grouping you're in, there's going to be a big dragon, and it's going to be a big problem. It's a ton of fun. So there's always a ton of cards coming out. Obviously, for this one, there's a ton of very narrow cards. There's very powerful dragon cards. We can't talk about every single card. If it's good in one specific strategy, you probably know it. It's either designed specifically for that, or it's just like a dragon card. So, yeah, it says if you have a dragon or give all your dragons or whatever, it's, you know. Yeah. Yeah, we don't necessarily need to tell you put that in your dragon deck. So, yeah, we probably won't talk about those as much. But there are a lot of cards that you're going to see across from you on the battlefield. We want to talk about as many of those as possible, just so you've heard of them, or you might put them in one of your decks. Yeah, these are the ones we sort of see as making a splash in the format in some way, shape, or form. Or they're just worth talking about and evaluating out loud. There's some that are just hard to evaluate, and it's interesting to be like, is this playable or not? Like, does this read better than it will be, or does this read worse than it might be? Absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. Lately, we've been starting this episode by going through the new mechanics in each set. I think it's really helpful. It gives you a big overview of what the set does. So we're going to break down all of the new ones. There's some returning stuff that we don't need to talk about just as much. And the first one is the Abzan keyword. This is Endure. Yeah, so Endure is the ability when you endure, it'll say endure then a number. And whatever that number is, you can either choose to put that many 1/1 counters on a thing or create a spirit token that is that size, meaning if it's endure 2, you either put 2+1/+1 counters on the creature or you make a 2/2 spirit. Yeah. Power or bodies. Yes. Noting the spirit is a ground spirit. This one does not fly. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yep. It would be extremely powerful if it gave you an additional body and one of them flew. Good. Yeah. And you would always take the flyer because it's just so much better than a 1/1 counter. So much better. It's like better than the body that it's attached to, probably. So Endure's really cool. It's based in Abzan, which is white, green, and black. I wanted to talk about one of the cards that has Endure, and we can go through this mechanic. This is Sinkhole Surveyor. It's 1 and a black for a 1/3 bird scout with flying. It says whenever this creature attacks, you lose 1 life, and this creature endures. So this is a 2-mana flyer that when you attack, it either gets a little bit bigger or it gives you a blocker. Yep. I think this card's great. It's very simple, but it does a lot for you. It's not Bitter Blossom, obviously, because that spits out repeatable flyers, but the fact that this gives you a flyer that can wear swords or attack in, and it sort of drops bodies or becomes a threat itself is very cool. Yeah, I would anticipate in Commander we'll probably see the bodies a little bit more often. Yeah. But +1/+1 counter decks could think about this or some Endure cards. I do think the comparison to Bitter Blossom is pretty apt. Yeah. While it's around, pretty good chance you will get to make a 1/1 every turn. They're not flyers, and this is a creature that's a little easier to die. And the good news is also, if you don't have a good attack, you might be able to put the 1/1 counter on it to get it big enough to then keep your attacks going. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, seems quite good. Great little role player and gives you a good idea of what Endure looks like in Commander. All right, the next mechanic is the Jeskai. Jeskai? Is it? Yeah. Yes. Okay. It's the white, Jeskai blue, mechanic. And red. Oh, yeah, of course. I was thinking it might be harmonized, but that's the Temur mechanic. Yep. It's Flurry, which is basically just keywording something that's been around for a while, which is when you cast your second spell, do something. Something. Yeah, get some sort of benefit.
Yeah, and it's great for Jeskai, which tends to be kind of a stormy color. It wants you to double spell every turn, and you get benefits. The one that I think is the most relevant for Commander, but there's not a whole lot to say about it, is Aligned Heart. This is 2 and a white. This is from the Commander product. It's an enchantment with Flurry. It says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a rally counter on this enchantment, then create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess for each rally counter on it. So this card's sweet, and it definitely snowballs. And it's
How far we've come since Assemble the Legion.
This is Assemble the Legion for 3 mana, yeah.
That you have a lot more control over.
Right.
And it makes monks.
It makes monks, so it makes better tokens. It's 2 mana less. It's in 1 color. And you do have to put in some work to make it happen, but 2 spells is not that much work.
It feels on all accesses better than just about Assemble the Legion. Maybe we can come up with fringe cases where Assemble would be better. But this is quite a powerful card. But we see that they've just keyworded a thing that we've had for a long time. When you cast your second spell, do a thing. Sometimes it's a lot of thing, but yeah, pretty easy mechanic to understand, I would say.
It's also pretty good in Commander. Double spelling is the metric for when you start to when the game starts to kick off. So I think these are pretty free. I wouldn't consider Flurry a build around mechanic or a narrow mechanic. If you think that your deck wants these prowess tokens, for example, you can probably support Flurry.
Yeah, and usually Flurry is just going to be better the lower your curve is.
Right.
And in general, we know that as the format has sort of sped up, we've talked about needing more 2-drops and 3-drops and playing less high stuff naturally anyway. So Flurry just plays into sort of where deck building has been trending. Obviously, there will be those big mana decks that want to cast singular big things, and Flurry probably just can't slot into those easily. But most decks, I'd say you're right. It's kind of free. You can kind of count on being able to do it. It's what most decks want to do.
Next one's a big one. This is the Temur mechanic. It's green, blue, and red. It's Harmonize.
Yeah.
So this is fancy flashback.
Yeah, it is fancy flashback. So it'll have Harmonize and a cost, and then that cost can be reduced by, you're allowed to tap a creature and reduce that Harmonize cost by the power of that creature, and then you cast it from your graveyard for the Harmonize cost. So let's say Winter Night Stories is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. And then it has Harmonize 4 and a blue. So if you tapped, let's say, a 4/4 to pay for this Harmonize cost, you would just have to pay the blue, and then you get to cast out of your graveyard. So it's flashback that can be reduced, basically.
Yeah, which is so powerful.
You also do not have to reduce it.
No.
So if you just have the 5 mana and no creature, or don't want to tap your creature, you can be like, cool, I'll pay the 5 mana and just use that as a flashback cost. So yeah, it really is flashback plus.
It's better than flashback because it gives you flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, it can never really be worse than flashback.
Right.
I mean, they obviously costed the things in a manner to balance it, but it's just hey, there's a flashback cost and you can reduce it if you want to. Is kind of what it is. Yeah.
These are largely at sorcery speed. I haven't seen one that's an instant, just because it's weird with tapping a creature at instant speed makes it less of a downside. So I think they balanced it pretty well. And there's a lot of them that are just very good in Commander that aren't really worth evaluating beyond is Harmonize good? And the answer is yes, it is quite good.
Yeah. And similar to flashback, it's going to be a little bit better in decks that are self-milling because what it does is usually, or rummaging or looting, right? Because you loot away a Harmonized card, you draw a card to replace it, but you still kind of have access to the Harmonized card.
Right.
So yeah, I would say those type of decks are real. They are already looking for flashback cards for that reason. You could just put Harmonize in sort of a similar position to hey, if I like flashback and that kind of thing, I probably will want to look at Harmonized cards now in addition to that.
Right. I want to mention a couple just so they're on your radar. A Nature's Rhythm is X green. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
Pretty good.
We're familiar with this effect. It's very good. It's Green Sun Zenith for 1 more green, and you don't have to find a green card.
Yeah.
And Harmonize X green. So 4 green, but you can reduce it with a creature you just tutored for.
Yeah. Yeah. The cost reduction can be huge, too, because remember, it's by the creature's power. So you're in green, so the assumption would be you have something big, and it can reduce it by a lot. You get a Galt out, you'll get anything you want from your deck, right?
Yeah. It's really sweet. I mean, this card's great. If you're running tutors like this, you're probably adding this to the list. There's no restrictions, and you can cast it twice. Why not?
Pretty sweet.
The best one for me, or the one that I'm the most interested in casting, is Zenith Festival. It's X red for a sorcery. Exile the top X cards of your library. You may play them until the end of your next turn. And then it's Harmonize for X red. The same cost as the mana cost.
Yeah.
This card is cracked.
It's better to harmonize than it is to cast, honestly, because one of the problems with Impulsive Draw is it costs you mana to Impulsive Draw. You have a limited amount of time to use those cards, but you use some mana to impulsively draw. So the harmonized cost is like, no, you only use 2 mana, got access to a bunch of cards, and you still have a bunch of mana left to cast those cards.
Like if you tap a 4/4, like a perfectly reasonable power level, like power card to have on board, you just get 4 cards for 2 mana this turn and your next turn.
Yeah, it's really
That's
good.
incredible, especially in red, which is the color for looting. It's easy to throw this in the bin, get some more cards for it, and then like be able to pop off and get 4 or 5
absolutely
extra cards for no
you
mana
throw possibilities this in, and then you've just got access to like a really efficient draw spell at some point.
Yeah, this card's great. I think we'll see plenty of play, especially in those kind of blue-red Stormier decks.
Yeah, and red's also the color that has a lot of high power creatures.
Yeah.
So, 4's very modest. You could have a 7 power thing.
Ball Lightning. Your Ball Lightning cast from exile deck.
Okay.
Nothing lasts.
I don't know if I want to tap it.
Yeah, well.
I might want to hit him with it.
No, I
It's
don't
not
know
never
about,
very long.
I don't know about that.
Well, who are you and what have you done with Rachel Weeks?
We're going to tap our Ball Lightning.
To draw cards. She's saying
card
that, and I'm
draw.
saying, I know you attack
And
with
then
it.
we're going to get another Ball Lightning off of it.
All right.
All right.
Everybody's like, what are the boomers talking about?
What is
Ball Lightning?
happening?
What is that card?
I've never heard of that before. It's okay. Don't put it in your commander deck. I was kidding.
Yeah, it's bad. Broken back in the day, though.
It was.
Okay, the next mechanic is the Mardu mechanic. It is Mobilize. And the way Mobilize works is it'll be, again, Mobilize and a number, similar to Endure. And then when this creature attacks, you create X, whatever the Mobilize number is, tapped and attacking red warrior creature tokens. And then you sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So if it's Mobilize 3, you attack with the thing, you'd make 3 1/1 red warrior tokens that are tapped and attacking, but they don't stick around.
This is such a tokeny set.
Yeah.
There's this one and Endure. Ugh. So this is good. It gives you a lot of things entering the battlefield, and it gives you a lot of things leaving the battlefield, which in Commander is sort of exactly what you want. You do sacrifice them, right, at the end step?
Yes, they do not stick around.
You get dies triggers.
You get dice triggers, you
but
can
it's
sack
not
them to other
exile.
things, but if you Sundial of the Infinite or something, you can probably keep them.
Yeah, I just mean that you get an actual dice trigger rather than them being exiled at the end of turn. So you get all of the ETBs, you get all of the dice triggers. So if you're in any kind of aristocrat decks, you can kind of look at these as huge bursts of material, and they have to survive combat for you to be able to like skull clamp them or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely seems possible. There's a couple of cards that are worth noting that have Mobilize on them. Infantry's Shield is from the Commander product. This is in the Mardu deck. It's 2 and a red for an artifact equipment with equipped creature has Menace and Mobilize X, where X is its power, and it equips for 2.
That seems very good.
That seems very good.
Yeah, put it on just like a 4/4 flyer, and it's just like
You
4 1/1s coming at you every time.
4 bodies.
Yeah.
And you get to declare where all of them are attacking, right? So you could send all 4 of those tokens at one player, or you could spread them out.
Right, whoever's open or whoever has the fewest blockers. And like you said, if you have a Blood Artist out or a Viscera Seer, it's just some way to cash those in for
Impact
some other
Tremors.
value. All of a sudden, it's like, you block that one, sack that one, the other 3 get through, then I sack those for value.
This with a Goblin Bombardment is just like, I can't block, and
Yeah,
everything's dying.
Oh, God, Goblin Bombardment's so good.
Oh, God. So that one's really great. I think it's going to see a lot of play. There's Avenger of the Fallen, which is in black. It's 2 and a black for a Death Touch with 2. That's a 2/4. It's got Mobilize X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. This is definitely sweet in the Aristocrat version of this deck.
Yep. Because you're going to be putting stuff in the graveyard, so that graveyard is going to get big.
And it's been talked about a lot in like CDH and Commander circles. It's Voice of Victory, 1 and a white for a 1/3 human bard. This one has Mobilize too, but that is more gravy because the next line is your opponents can't cast spells during your turn.
Yeah. It's Grand Abolisher with upside.
Yeah, that makes bodies.
Boy.
It's great. I mean, being an aggro deck that can protect your turn in combat means that like everybody has to act before you declare where your attackers are. There's no surprises. So it's very good in aggro decks. It's very good in combo decks, obviously, where you can protect whatever you're doing. It is a good one.
It's very, very good. Pro tip, a lot of times it's correct to save it until the turn you're trying to do something big rather than run it out there early. This has mobilize, though, so that'll make that decision a little bit harder for some people.
Yeah. I don't know. The mobilize is so funny because it's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just gravy. It's great to have mobilize as gravy.
Yeah, to have 3 bodies as gravy. 3 bodies for 2 mana repeatedly. Cool. Thank you. Anyway, up next.
Yes, this is not a specific to one of the clans mechanic, but it is a new thing nonetheless. It is the Omen cards. It's confusing. We're going to go through it here. It looks exactly like Adventure.
Exactly.
Which is, I'm going to complain about later, but let's just get through this first part. The difference is, so it's like that little book at the bottom of the artwork that they had for Adventures, and on the left side, there's what used to be an Adventure spell, but now it's an Omen spell, and then on the right side is whatever the other spell is, a creature in most cases here, some kind of dragon. So you might be confused that it works like Adventure, but it doesn't. So let's look at Meringue River Regent as our example. It's 4 blue, and the right side of the card is a creature dragon. It's a 6/7 with flying, and it says when this creature enters, return up to 2 other target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. And then it has an Omen part, again, where the adventures normally go, which is called Coil and Catch. That's 3 and a blue for an instant Omen. It says draw through 3 cards, then discard a card. Now, it's easy to miss, but there's a parenthetical right after that says, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So there you go. It doesn't work like an adventure, right? Where an adventure, you would cast that small spell, and then it would exile it, and you can cast the other side at any point later. The omens don't work that way. If you choose to cast the spell side of it, it's going to shuffle back into your library. You don't get to just be like, and then I want the dragon later. You have to draw it again. I don't hate the design. The design's fine. If if you want to design cards that do this, why make it look like something that works totally differently? Usually we're complaining like, oh, it's tough for new players. This is tough for older players.
Right.
Because
it's
all your mental
memory. Yeah,
exactly. I've got all this institutional knowledge of how Magic works from playing it for years and years. And you look at that card and the way that's laid out and you go, oh, I know how that works because it looks like how those other, and then all of a sudden, no, it doesn't work that way. So anyway, that's me complaining.
And yeah, you don't get to save it for later. It is more of a choice. So it's more of like a fixed adventure, where adventure is like fully 2 spells. Omen is you either get a dragon now or you get this spell now, and then it goes back into the library. It's very interesting. I mean, I was talking to Murph about it because this has a weird thing of like, you can draw it again. It's singleton, but you can cast this spell over and over again. Yeah. So in Limited, it's much more relevant than in Commander. But like, if you draw the spell again, you're like, oh, sick. All right, back into the library you go. Here we go. So it's very interesting, and it definitely plays very different than Adventure.
A lot different.
It does.
Yeah.
Finally, the Sultai mechanic is Renew. So this is a sort of fancy exile from the Great Scavenge.
Yeah, we've had this ability, or abilities like this around for a while. But it's basically like pay some cost, exile, usually, I think it's all creatures right now, this creature from the graveyard, and then put some kind of counters on stuff. It's not just 1/1 counters. It can be, as we'll see, ability counters. But that's big. And we've had lots of cards in sets for a while that do this. Not so much put flying counters and stuff on, but like, hey, exiles from your graveyard, put 2 1/1 counters on something. It's added value you can get when it dies.
It's like, Scavenge for sure is, I think, is a good comparison.
Yeah, Scavenge, but sometimes ability words, I guess, yeah.
So this is a good example is Cori-Steel Revenant. It's 1 black for a vampire. It's a 3/3 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. Its renew ability is 2 and a black. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a flying counter, a death touch counter, and a lifelink counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Those are some good ones.
Those are pretty good ones.
Those are some good keywords
I had this
for
in my,
3 mana.
In my sealed pool.
This thing's busted.
It's really good. Yeah.
Like, if once you get through their flying, death touch, lifelinker for 3, you're like, oh, cool, another flying death touch lifelinker.
Well, a lot of times it makes it worse for you. You're like, I don't want to trade that thing because then they're going to make this other bigger thing.
But it has lifelink. You have to get rid of it.
Death touch, and you're like, oh crap. But what do? I can't just sit there and let that thing hit me.
Yeah. I'm putting this in Sidisi right away. Like, it's a self-mill deck, and it puts keywords on Sidisi to make her better at attacking. I think this card is going to be really good in Commander and is like a cool role player in graveyard decks.
Yeah. Something that's easy to miss too is when you activate this ability, there's a leaves the graveyard trigger. So there's also decks that care about that more and more these days.
Especially in this set.
Yeah, so yeah, I like the design of this set. I like this mechanic in general as sort of a little bit of added value. I think there's only going to be a few cards probably playable in Commander from it because a lot of them are just sort of costed for limited, but the ones that are good are going to be really good. Yeah. I think the design overlap between the clans, you've got some amount of tokens in Endure and in Mobilize. And
Black-white crossover.
Yeah, and you've got some amount of I want to self-mill things and get value out of the graveyard in Harmonize and in Renew. And
that's green blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's tied to the enemy color pairs because those are sort of the pillars upon which all the clans rest. So for limited, they had to design it that way, which I think is kind of elegant and works pretty well.
It's great. It makes the gameplay really complicated, and I've been having so much fun with this set already.
Yep.
And I love that all the mechanics play together. All right, let's move on. We're going to start talking about some individual cards, starting with the cycles. But before we get into all of that, of course, we've got to take a break to hear a word from our sponsors.
With all these Magic Cons now, we've been doing a lot of traveling.
That's true, but hey, at least the flight to Vegas is quick.
Flight? I'm making a drive.
That's like over 4 hours, Jimmy.
Yeah, but that's over 4 hours of listening to audiobooks. I've been working my way through the Wheel of Time series on Audible. So instead of endless Nevada desert, I'll be on an epic fantasy adventure.
Wait, you're listening to the Wheel of Time? That's like my favorite series ever. I've been listening to Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which is actually one of the titles included for free with the Audible membership.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and even with how busy my schedule is, Audible's app makes it easy to just throw it on when I'm taking a walk or driving to work.
Plus, as a member, you can choose one title a month to keep from the whole catalog. And they've got over 1 million things in there.
Oh, that explains why you're planning a drive that's like months from now.
Yeah, actually, that's more of a Wheel of Time thing, because I'm only on book 2.
Oh, so I guess you're just driving to all the Magic Cons until like 2032 then.
Yeah. How many hours does it take to get to Atlanta?
Probably about a third of a Wheel of Time book.
Oh, nice.
Start listening and discover what's beyond the edge of your seat. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days and dive into a world of new thrills.
Visit audible.com/command or text command to 500-500. That's audible.com/command or text command to 500-500.
Oh, hey everyone, it's me, everyone's favorite inescapable magic mascot, Loot the Pathfinder. I don't need help finding my path through the multiverse, but when it comes to selling my sweet loot-themed loot, well, that path was paved by Shopify. As you might ancestral recall, I've talked to you about Shopify before, but the more sets I'm in, the more people demand cute, cuddleable me's, so my warehouses are flush with plush. Luckily, with Shopify's powerful tools, I'm making sales even quicker than a lightning bolt. They have the #1 checkout on the planet, making sure your shoppers' carts don't get abandoned. Like how I was abandoned in a vault for millennia. Shopify is the business behind the business, powering all sorts of sellers, even the Command Zone merch store. So if you want to boost your sales with Shopify, do it now. An opportunity like this doesn't double strike. I mean strike twice. Haha, silly little Lou.
Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/TCZ, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/TCZ to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/TCZ.
Josh,
You ready? Let's do this. We're back on Whatnot! A ton of people have been asking us when we're going to stream on Whatnot again, and it's finally happening. April 24th at 2 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to bookmark it at whatnot.com/invite/command.
We're going to be doing tons of sweet giveaways, some cool Game Nights merch, and even signed cards. And of course, we'll be there live, hanging out in chat, answering questions with the fans.
Yeah, these Whatnot streams are always a blast. It's really like doing an episode of the podcast, but you get to be part of it and maybe win some free stuff.
And this time, we'll be back to back with the Professor!
He'll be starting right before us at 1 p.m., so you can watch the prof and then jump right over to us afterward. It's like a double feature.
Wait, that set sucked. It's like Trouble in Pairs.
That art was kind of
Yeah,
plagiaristic.
fine. It's a 2-for-1. And the best part is, if you sign up for Whatnot using our link at whatnot.com/invite/command, you'll get $15 for free to use anywhere on the platform. That's a pretty hard deal to pass up.
So come join us on April 24th at 2 p.m. on Whatnot to get in on all the fun. And don't forget to use our link and get those 15 free dollars.
So be there or be square. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, clue fish.
Dr. Seuss?
No, I'm working on Morph on Fish Typal. Just want to make sure I have enough fish to actually draw some.
Oh, well, you should use ARCHIDEKT's hypergeometric calculator. See? ARCHIDEKT makes it easy to check your chances of drawing what you need, whether it's a certain creature type, mana value, or category of cards, like ramp or draw spells. I use it to check my land count. See, in this deck you only have a 61% chance of drawing 3 lands by turn 2. Might be a little low.
Okay, I'll cut a basic or 2.
Wait, you mean add?
Nope, I've got a reputation to uphold. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the new cards from Tarkir Dragonstorm, and it's time to get into the cycles for this set. There's a couple of them that are commander relevant. The first one we're going to talk about is the Sieges.
Yep.
They're back.
The return of the Siege.
Yeah, we've seen Sieges before in specifically Tarkir, and it's an enchantment that when it enters, you choose one of the abilities, and that's the enchantment that it is. So it's sort of a mobile... Modal, excuse me. It's not a mobile enchantment. That's an
you
aura.
can move it around on your battlefield if you want to.
Yeah, if you want. You can put it on wheels. I'm not going to stop you. Have it do a little kickflip.
Yeah, the sort of famous ones from before, like Outpost Siege, I think was probably the one we saw the most over the years.
Frontier Siege, a little underrated. That's the one that gives you 2 green.
Yep, Citadel Siege. So if you've been around, they've kind of fallen out of favor in recent years, but for a long time, Outpost Siege was a red staple. So if you're familiar with those cards, these are the new ones, but these are multicolored, all of them, and they're all in the enemy colored pairs. So a little bit more narrow as far as decks they can go in, but it allowed them to do, well, different stuff than before, which I guess the same things would be boring.
Yeah.
All right, I'll read the first one. It is called Barrensteppe Siege. This is 2 white and black, so 4 mana for an enchantment. As the enchantment enters, choose either Abzan or Mardu. If you choose Abzan, it says at the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. If you choose Mardu, it says at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. So it's a little bit Grave Pact on one side.
And a little bit Felidar Retreat on the other.
There you go.
Yeah, I think both of these sides are a little underwhelming, but let's talk about Abzan puts the counters on at your end step, which is nice. So it means that like you're not waiting for an entire turn rotation for this enchantment to do something.
Yep.
But 1 set of counters per turn is just not really fast enough to make an overwhelming threat unless you are very, very wide.
Yeah. For 4 mana, it's just pretty underwhelming to get it at your end step, the 1/1 counters. You'd almost always want something that's just like at least even if it's an instant,
combat.
do it now, and then I can attack now.
Right.
But like, hey, my board just grew, but I can't do anything with it. Hope you don't kill it all is not where I really want to be. And then the second mode, which is the Mardu sort of Grave Pact-y mode. I mean, Grave Pact is 4 mana. It's a lot harder to cast, but it's so much better when you think about it. It's a card that I personally don't like playing because of what it does at games, but from a power level standpoint, that the fact that you sacrifice a creature, everybody has to sacrifice a creature right then, and you can do that multiple times a turn. And then you compare it to this, which is like, if you can sacrifice a creature at the end step, they're all going to have to. It's going to do things to your opponents, and it'll be tough for certain decks to even beat this effect. But it is a lot slower and a lot worse than other cards that already exist that are at similar casting cost.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to play an effect that repeatedly causes your opponents to sacrifice creatures, just play the good ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're not going to like this one either, and just because it's worse doesn't mean it's more fun.
Right.
It's still an effect that people are going to react to. So, in my opinion, you should just play the ones that work a little bit better and actually give you the control that you're looking for, as opposed to one that's a little slower and still can be backbreaking for certain strategies.
Yeah, one thing I'll also say is like these 2 modes are very far apart.
In terms of like what decks want them.
Yeah. Because if you're sacrificing stuff, you don't usually want to be spending a lot of resource pumping it. So sometimes, I guess there are token aristocracy decks that might, but they're not going to want to like slowly add 1/1 counters.
They should really pick a lane, sacrificing or making them bigger.
Exactly. So you're usually going to be putting it in the deck for one specific mode, which doesn't necessarily make all these worse or anything. It's just there's certain ones of these that you might be willing to, in certain circumstances, I could use either of these, and that will bump up my evaluation of it a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, if you're only using one side, it removes the modality of the card. That's like part of the benefit is that it can do 2 things.
Right.
And if it's only doing one thing, it's worse.
It's just naturally less powerful for you in that deck,
All right, we're going to move on to Frostcliff Siege. This is 1 blue and a red for an enchantment. As it enters, choose Jeskai or Temur. Jeskai is whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Temur is creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste. This one is more interesting for sure. It is cheaper, which is always better.
Yep.
The Jeskai one I want to note is like when you hit, you can only draw one card per player.
Per player, right? Yeah,
so not per creature.
If you hit one person with 3 creatures, you will just draw 1. But if you hit each of your opponents with 1 creature each, you'll draw 3.
Yeah. If you have double strike, you'll draw multiples.
That's a good point.
Instances. But or if you have first strike and then another one has double strike, then you draw 2. Now we're getting complicated. But it's like this is a slightly worse version of an effect that we've run before, the 4 mana like Coastal Piracy type effects. Right. But it is also a little bit cheaper.
And I will say this one, the other mode in a deck that's dealing combat damage to players, which you must be in some way wanting to do that if you're running this in your deck, means that it does open up either mode. You're probably going to, well, maybe this is just me, but steer a little more towards the draw card thing. But you could look at a board where like, well, that's not really going to do anything right now. But if I do the other mode, I can play, my follow-up plays are better. I can get some stuff in there, So at least I think the top mode is going to be the most likely that we're going to see the most. But the second one, you don't really play the 3-mana enchantments that give haste.
Fervor doesn't get played a ton anymore.
Yeah, but haste is very powerful in certain scenarios and might be a thing that like, well, in this game, in this scenario, I do want that.
There's also certain decks that want to run as many haste enablers as possible to make sure they have one. But if you have 2, they don't do anything. So you're like, all my creatures have double haste isn't anything. So if you're like, okay, I already have a haste enabler, I have anger in my graveyard or something like that, this gives me other utility.
Yeah, because if you draw Fervor there, you have no choice. It's just Fervor does what Fervor does. But this one says, oh, yeah, it may not be the main mode you want, but yeah, I like that a lot. And it's also in blue and red, which are the best colors at looting or rummaging in a way. So you can have redundancy of effect and just be like, well, I already have this game and I don't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this card's good.
Fine.
It's like maybe the modality is good enough that it sees play, but 2 colors always makes it a little bit harder to find a spot for.
For sure. All right, the next one is Glacierwood Siege. It is 1 and Simic here, which is green and blue. So 3 mana for an enchantment. You can choose either Temur or Sultai. Temur is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target player mills 4 cards. Target player mills 4 cards, period. Yeah. And then Sultai is you may play lands from your graveyard.
I mean...
So any instant or sorcery is a mill 4 on... presumably yourself most of the time, but there might be instances where you go after an opponent or, you're storming off and you're trying to mill people out.
Yeah, to build your own brain freeze.
Yeah.
This card's quite good. The first ability, being able to cast instants and sorceries and mill yourself, makes it very good in decks that can play your spells from the graveyard.
Your harmonize.
If you've got your harmonize effects for sure. But if you have like Leer that lets you play our instants and sorceries from your graveyard, or like the sweaty way to go with this is Underworld Breach.
Yep.
Now you have like every time you cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard, you get the cards to fuel the next spell you cast from the graveyard.
Really good.
Like that's a very serious combo in 3 different colors, but like
it's not going to go in every deck because it's very specific to colors. But 5 color decks and Temur decks can definitely run it.
It's a powerful effect that we've never seen before on a card that I think certain decks are going to be very excited to try out.
Yeah, the 3 mana might sound like a lot for this ability, but because you could then just the following turn or that turn chain together 2 or 3 spells and immediately get the value out of that, right? Like if you mill 12 cards in a deck that want like. Because that's like virtual card draw for a lot of decks, just to get things into the graveyard. Like the amount of value you got off this card can be insane. And I could even, like I said, see it as win cons in certain decks. Are like, oh, I'm going to put this in here to mill myself, but when I'm starting to storm off, I'll just start targeting, Jimmy with it, and then
you cast 10 spells, you mill somebody for 40.
Crazy.
Like that's so many. Crazy. That's tons.
But a lot of times when you're storming off, you're just looking, you're like, I can cast a lot of spells and I just need the thing that's going to weaponize that into victory. And it's like, a lot of times that's, some sort of gutter snipe effect, but this could play that role, right? Like if you figure, okay, well, 20 gutter snipe triggers will kill somebody. Well, 20 of these will also mill 80 cards, right? So yeah. So
20 times 4, yeah.
Yeah. So it's very similar.
And it has the upside of fueling your own engine.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can't point gutter sniper yourself as a benefit. But you can be like, yeah, for now I'm just going to mill stuff. And then once I start to go, maybe I could use it against them. Or maybe I'll just keep milling myself.
Maybe.
I mean, there's also like Labman and Thassa's Oracle stuff that this will help fuel too. So that Underworld Breach thing with all that We didn't talk at all about the Crucible of Worlds.
Yeah, the Crucible of Worlds side, which is like a busted
Just
card
a
that
card.
we play all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not even, that's discounting the Ramunap Excavator, Crucible of Worlds. Just is a card that always has homes, right? All the landfall decks and things like that.
If you're in a deck that's interested in milling yourself too, it just is like, oh, well, I would love to mill myself here, but I need to hit this land drop, so I'm going to play this and play a land out of my graveyard, and I have other ways to self-mill. Like,
yeah, pretty good. Pretty
this
good.
is a great card.
Yeah.
It's in 2 colors, so obviously these are always going to be limited, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I think we'll see this one fairly often.
Up next is Hollowmurk Siege. This is the black-green one. It's just black-green for an enchantment, so 2 mana. As this enchantment enters, choose Sultai or Abzan. Sultai, whenever a counter is put on a creature you control, draw a card. It only triggers once each turn. And Abzan, whenever you attack, put a +1 counter on target attacking creature, it gains Menace until end of turn. So this is the cheapest of the bunch, obviously. Hard to get cheaper than 2 mana in a 2-color card. And it's less, it has like a lower ceiling than the last one that we talked about, but both of these are relevant abilities that go in a very similar deck.
Yep. That's what I like this one a lot. Maybe my favorite of the bunch as far as maybe not the most powerful at its most powerful, but the floor on it's very high.
Yeah.
Because the decks that want it are obviously going to be putting 1/1 counters on stuff. And it's 2 mana, so you really don't have to draw a bajillion cards off this to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then the other mode is relevant when if you just sort of draw it later and you're trying to get in, or whatever it is, you've got combat damage triggers and things like that. I think we'll probably see that one a little bit less, and especially if you're in a deck that's able to put counters on stuff on when it's not your turn somehow, then all of a sudden you can draw 2 cards out of this turn, and it becomes really good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I keep thinking about with this one is it's both a payoff for having counters and an engine for putting counters.
Yeah.
So it's similar to the other one where you're like, okay, I wish I could use the first one to draw cards, but I don't have a way to just put counters on stuff right now, so I have to use the second one. And now I have a way to like actually get my engine going. And it just makes it less of it's not a do-nothing card anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like it is both an enabler and a payoff.
And a payoff, yeah. Which is so important because counter decks often, those are the 2 pieces they are looking for.
Right.
If a third piece existed, it's have a creature to put a counter on. But
Right.
it's like, and you can end up with like, oh, I got a bunch of stuff that puts counters on things, but nothing's really making that more than the sum of its parts. I don't have a payoff for it, so now this can be that. But it's like, oh, I have the things that are paying me off for counters, but I can't put counters on stuff. Oh, well, then it'll do that in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this card really shows off the power of overlap in your deck. It just makes everything work better when your cards can play 2 roles.
Pretty good.
All right, last one.
Okay, the last one is the Boros one. It is Windcrag Siege. It is 1 red-white for an enchantment. You can choose either Mardu, which says if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. And then, or you could choose Jeskai, which is at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. I don't know about the lifelink on that. That's weird.
That's so weird.
It's just because, we got to make it white somehow.
Yeah, goblins are red. We give it
Lifelink?
Goblins have never had lifelink.
It's just
that
weird.
is just so antithetical to what goblins do. It feels like. Anyway,
Sure, it's like a sort of a bad Billier Blossom on the one side, just because it's 3 mana. It obviously, the goblins, I don't even know if it's better than Fairy. It has lifelink and haste, I suppose. But it's really the Ishin thing.
Yeah, that's the star of the show here for
Crazy.
sure. This is a really powerful effect, and it reduces the color. So Ishin obviously is very good, but it has to go in fully Mardu decks. This one can go in Boros, and there's a lot of commanders that are like very interested in being doubled up.
Oh, yeah. And it's on an enchantment, more difficult to get rid of. This is super good. We'll see this one the most, I bet, of all of them.
I would guess. It's exactly the kind of card that commander players get excited about. I mean, all the Aurelia, the War Leader decks are like, I get 2 extra combats!
God.
I get 2 extra combats!
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of very excited Boros commanders for this card, and if it's making goblins, then something has gone wrong.
It's just, that seems weird. Yeah.
Yeah, like Goblin Assault exists.
I wonder how long it'll be until I see someone make a goblin with this.
Yeah.
10
Most
years.
of the time. Like if they play it, you'll be like, oh no! And they'll be like, I'll choose the Jeskai mode. And you're like, oh.
What the?
All right.
It's kind of like Outpost Siege. People would play it, and as a joke, I'd be like, "What side do you choose?"
Yeah.
Because everybody knows.
People will be very excited for this one.
It's quite powerful. All right, there's another cycle that is returning, and it is the will cycle. So this was from Commander Legends originally. The heavy hitters were like Jeska's Will. You may have heard of it. You might have played it once or twice.
Chroma's Will, I don't know. How many times have I died to that? There's been a lot of wills throughout Magic's history. The ones that we are referring to specifically have 2 abilities. You can get one or the other. You get both if your commander's in play.
Yeah, they're designed just like those other ones. So yeah, there's one for each of the clans. So the first one is Will of the Abzan. I keep thinking it's like there is a person named Will who is of the Abzan.
There's a Will in each
Hey, Will.
group.
No, of the Jeskai. Yeah, come over
Will.
here.
Different Will.
Will of the Abzan, 3 and a black for a sorcery. Choose one. If you control your commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both instead. Here are the 2 choices. Any number of target opponents each sacrifice a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls and lose 3 life, and or return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you have your commander out, each of your opponents sacks their biggest thing, loses 3, and you get your best creature out of your graveyard onto the battlefield.
It's like Big Shieldred, but it happens all at once.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true. It's
Like, that's great.
one hit of Shieldred. Yeah.
Shieldred, bam.
Plus
you only
a
get one hit
little
of
life
Shieldred anyway.
That's if you're lucky,
If
yeah.
you're lucky, this is the full thing.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
I think this card's quite good. And just by shortcutting it to its 1 round of Shieldred in 1 sorcery that happens right now, as long as you control your commander, of course.
And you have good stuff in the graveyard. Like, you do have to have some setup, but it
Right.
is a lot of value on 1 card.
I really like Soul Shatter. It's an instant that makes everybody sacrifice their highest power one. Like, I've run Soul Shatter a lot, and this is Soul Shatter plus a potential Reanimate. The big thing about this one is I think you really do want your commander in play, or it looks significantly worse. It is sorcery speed. It is a little overcosted for both of those effects. Very overcosted for the Reanimate effect.
Yeah.
But if you get both of them in one package, this is a game-changing type of card. It just pivots the whole board state.
Yeah, to me, that you have to have your commander in play thing is not much of a downside. I mean, if you look at Jeska's Will, it's really not that good unless you get both sides. Like, how often have you ever seen anybody just get the mana or just get the cards? It's usually like that's it's a card. It does stuff, but but when they get both, you're like, holy crap, that card's broken.
Right.
And that feels like what this is, and that hurdle just never seems that high.
Right.
You're always able to clear, do I have my commander out? And when you do that, especially if you are self-milling, rummaging, looting, it's cheating something out as well. And that could be so powerful because you get so much mana worth of stuff here. You might take 15 mana from your opponents, get 3 5-drops, and then bring back, 7 mana worth of stuff. And that's 22 mana for your 4 mana. Not to mention 4 cards for your 1 card. And both of those access, it will be very swingy.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. I think it's competing with Black's interaction, but again, this does the overlap thing that we keep talking about. This is disruption that is attached to your recursion. And if you can have a card that fills both slots, your deck just gets better.
Yep, pretty great.
Moving on to Will of the Jeskai. No, the other
Whose
Will.
name is Will? Jeskai's name
The
is
red Will. This is 3 and a red for a sorcery. It has 2 abilities. The first is each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. And the second is each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So it's like most of a Wheel of Fortune stapled to a Past in Flames.
Yeah. Which I suppose those things kind of go together because you discard,
Yeah.
and then you put things in there, and then those things
You can
could
cast those things-ish.
Yeah, the problem with this card is 4 mana.
Yeah. I don't think they could make it 3 mana. Then it feels extremely powerful. Right?
Sure.
If this is 3 mana and it's a wheel plus it gives you the stuff that you've actually put in your bin, that feels very powerful.
It's powerful, but if you take Mana Geyser and Jessica's Will out of the equation,
Right.
So there's 2 very specific cards. If you have those, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But you take those out, and it's like, well, what's the turn where I've got enough mana left over after I cast this to really take advantage of it?
The way that I think about this card is I'm mostly putting it in red decks that don't have blue because it's one of the wheels. The plan, the turn I cast it, is to cast this, refresh my hand, and maybe cast like an instant, like
get
one
one
removal
extra
spell.
card out of it.
You cast like an Abrade from your graveyard.
Yeah.
So it's 6 mana, you get a fresh hand, and you get to kill a thing. And it's very possible that the Past in Flame side of this is just gravy. But I do like this idea of just having a wheel that doesn't force people to wheel, and it's more castable than the suite of wheels that sort of exists. Like, Wheel of Fortune is out of reach for most players. It's just too expensive. Wheel of Misfortune requires a whole bunch of rigmarole to make it happen. And it's good when it happens, but it's a whole dance.
Yep.
And then you've got like Reforge the Soul, which is 5 mana for a wheel. And you've got Wheel of Fate, which is the suspended one. Like all of those are very hard to kind of line up the pieces to make those actually do what you want. And this is just discard your hand, 5 new cards, which red doesn't really have.
Yeah, Valakut Awakening, I think, but it doesn't give you 5 new cards, right? It just gives you how many you had plus 1,
and
which is equal to how many you had because of Valakut Awakening.
If you dump your hand, your Valakut Awakening doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of discard your hand, draw that many, but this puts you up cards.
I don't love it, but yeah, I think if your curve's really low, then it gets better because you really want to be at like 2 cards in hand, maybe 1 Swords to Plowshares or something when you cast it, so that you're like, cool, I'm going to get 5 new cards, and I'm going to cast the 1 or 2 that I pitched.
You don't even have to have pitched the one that you cast.
That's true. It's
just
in there. Yeah, that's a really good point. But I just think it's like a little overcosted. It's not a full wheel. The Past in Flames, it's a good analogy, but we don't really see Past in Flames that much. So the only turns I could really see where I'd be excited about having this card in my hand is if I also have Mana Geyser or Jessica's Will. And if I don't have those 2 cards, which, to be fair, are very good cards and can go in any red deck if you want, if you're at that power level. But to me, outside that scenario, I'm just thinking, I don't think I would be able to really find a comfortable place to cast this.
Sure. And
I think it'll be a lot of games where you're just like, if I cast this and take all this time to do this, I'm just going to fall so far behind. Yeah.
Yeah. That is certainly possible. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this deck. I have a couple decks that I'm just going to try it and see how it feels.
All right, the next one is the white one. It is Will of the Mardu, 2 and a white for an instant. I like it already. Choose one. If you control your commander, you can choose both instead. Option 1, create a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls. That's cool. And then option 2 is Will of the Mardu deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. So the way this would work is kind of obvious, right? Rachel's got 6 creatures. I cast this, I make 6 1/1s, and if those are the only creatures that I've got, I will deal 6 damage to something because it will see the 1/1s I made when it does that second part.
This card's sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, Call of the Coppercoats is a played card that does this first ability with Strive, so you can choose like multiple players.
Yep.
Most of the time I've seen Call of the Coppercoats cast, Call the Coppercoats, not Call of the Coppercoats.
Oh, right. You're calling them.
You call them.
Hey, Coppercoats.
Yeah, they're
Hi,
not.
it's Josh. Yeah.
Okay, there's a Will here. There's
there's this guy named Will.
5 Wills.
Yeah, he said to call you. He gave me your number, actually. No, the Jeskai one.
Yeah,
no, the Mardu one. Right.
Like most of the time, it's only targeting one player, right?
Yep.
It's 3 mana, make 5 bodies or something like that, and you feel pretty good about that. And this is 3 mana, make 5 bodies, and also probably kill a thing. Yeah, it's tokens and it's disruption. The overlap at instant speed is so powerful.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I like to think about this in terms of like, hey, there's 2 sides. We know that destroying a creature, 1 white is an okay rate for that, right? Because we have a lot of cards that are just 1 white mana.
Right.
That's
a lot
of them
expect.
A lot of them exile, but whatever. Like, get rid of a creature. Okay. So then you've got 2 mana. How many 1/1s do I have to get to be happy about my 2 mana? And I'd say 3 is the minimum.
Yeah,
if I get 2, it's raise the alarm. We don't really play it, except in fringe decks. If you get more than 3, which seems like a low bar to clear, you're now in the territory of like, hey, this is a very efficient card. Like, I'm getting more than the mana should get me. And so, can you imagine scenarios that commonly occur in Commander where you get 4, 5, 6? Yes, you can. 10. And there are some times where you're like, oh, sweet, that person just went off like crazy, but here's what I'm going to get to act first with mine, right? It's an instant.
Yeah. Cool scoot swarms, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It's an instant. Oh, great. You just made how many tokens? I will get that many, but also now I killed a thing and I'm untapping with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card's great. I'm a big fan of Will of the Mardu. It'll see plenty of play, and I love that. Like, even if you don't have your commander in play, you're perfectly happy spending 3 to get like 5 tokens, or just being like, all right, emergency, I need to kill this professional facebreaker.
Yeah, I have 4 creatures or whatever, and I will just use it as a removal spell. That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Will of the Sultai. You guys have there's a lot of wills around.
Yeah.
4 and a green for a sorcery. Choose one. If you control your commander, you get both. Target player mills 3 cards. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I love that you can target a player to mill them and then you reanimate yours. That's such a weird, like, all right. Then put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is the number of lands you control. It gains trample until end of turn. Okay, so this is another Splendid Reclamation type effect. We kind of have a lot of them at this point. Aftermath Analyst is my favorite. It's the creature that comes in and mills you. A World Shaper has sort of been pushed out by the Aftermath Analysts. And then Lumra. The bear.
I totally forgot about Lumra, but yes.
Yeah. So I think the closest comp is Lumra because this gives you mill and it gives you a big thing. Yeah. But the big difference between Lumra and this is this puts counters on a thing you have right now that can attack right now.
Has haste.
And it gives it trample.
But you also have to have a thing.
Whereas
Lumra is a thing.
That's true.
I mean, I'd say Splendid Reclamation type effects are like good to fine, but they're not like insane.
How many of these do you put in your deck if you're a Splendid Reclamation deck?
Only a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because any more than that, the second one won't do anything, and also you will need it at very specific times. It just if you look at the window of time you could have it, the window where it's good is pretty small. So yeah, you just don't want a lot of them. Does this make the cut is the question.
Does this make the cut?
Because I don't think this is changing any decks. This is just like, hey, if this is better than one of the other versions of this for my deck, then I'll put it in.
Right.
And identifying what that is one thing, but also just saying like, is it better than the other ones?
Right. I think the big question is like, I think Lumra is pretty expensive. So if they want a budget option, it's possible that this goes over Lumra. For me, Aftermath Analyst is the best one. I would run that over all of these.
It's a 2-drop.
It's a 2-drop that mills you. You can reanimate it. You can sack it at instant speed. This card's just busted. It's a little worse than Lumra. I think I would, if I had a Lumra, I would play that over it. But I do think I would play it over Splendid Reclamation. It just does a little bit more. And
seems worth that 1 extra mana.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like by the time you're casting this, you have extra mana. You're a lands deck.
Yeah, exactly.
So the efficiency doesn't.
The 1
really
extra mana
matter.
doesn't matter as much, and making something big and trampoline, an attack right now could be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it fits in there. Maybe it pushes out if you had Splendid Reclamation in your deck.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking about
swap.
it. Yeah, you can kill somebody with this.
Oh yeah. Definitely people will die to this, yeah. Will,
get in here!
Will! Get him!
Get him, Will! Get him! All right, there's one left. Appropriately, it's the blue one.
Yep. Will of the Temur. 5 and a blue for a sorcery. Choose one. Choose both for commander. Okay. Create a token that's a copy of target permanent, except is a 4/4 dragon creature with flying in addition to its other types. And then the second mode is target player draws cards equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control. Mm-hmm. So you can have somebody else draw cards, but it will still be according to the highest mana value of the thing you've got. Mm-hmm. Presumably, you can copy something that has a high mana value and then draw that many cards.
Right. So the dream is like, I copy your Bolas' Citadel and I draw 6 cards.
Sure.
That sounds sweet.
Yeah, I want to do that. Then you got a Bolas' Citadel.
And 6 cards. So this is the most expensive of the bunch. This is 6 mana at sorcery speed. For me, it's one of the highest ceilings, lowest floor cards. Copying a thing and getting a 4/4 dragon's pretty good. You hope there's a pretty good thing because you're paying 6 mana for it.
Yep.
But it gives you more cards when you already have a big thing, or you at least have just copied a big thing. So it's kind of Rishkar's Expertise, I guess, is like a decent comp, but in blue.
Yeah, I think 6 is a lot, which is the downside. But to me, it's a little bit better than it reads because of the fact that you copy somebody else's thing.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, Rishkar's Expertise requires you to have something.
Right.
So it's good when you're kind of doing okay. Mm-hmm. This could be good when you're not doing okay.
Sure.
Because if you're behind and what you need is something on the board that matters and more ammo in the chamber, this can do both of those things for you.
Right.
And if you're ahead, it can do it too because it will just copy your thing. Depending on what that is, obviously, if it's a legendary, you can't necessarily do it. But yeah. So, and you don't have to, I don't think you have to get as many cards as you think for this to be pretty good. I was thinking of it in comparison to Muldrifter, which is a card we play in and obviously has some upside because you can blink and it's got Evoke. But 5 mana, draw 2, and a 2/2 flyer. This is a 4/4 flyer, and if you draw 3 cards, I think you're probably okay on rate.
Yeah, how often are you playing 5 mana for the Muldrifter, though? Usually it's like 3 mana and then you blink it and you draw 2
I don't know,
more
Cloud
cards.
Blazer and everything sees play. Like, people cast those things. Like,
Yeah.
I think they're okay. They're not, like, amazing, but they are fine cards to put in your deck. Like, nobody looks at Cloud Blazer and says, like, you can't play that. And I think Cloud Blazer maybe is a better comp than Muldrifter
Sure,
just because it has less other utility.
Right.
But I think if you make a 4/4 that draws you 3 cards, 4/4 flyer, like, I think 6 is, like, fine. You're not, like, jumping around. But the fact that this sometimes can be, a 4/4 flyer that drew you 6 cards and is a Bolus of Citadel or something crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also could just be like a Gaia's Cradle maybe or something that like it's just
true.
like you don't draw off of it, but presumably you've got other things that you can draw off of maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's better than it looks. It's not amazing, but I think it is playable just because it gives you something and draws you cards, and a lot of things just only draw you cards, and then you just kind of die because you didn't put anything out.
I mean, the comp to Rishkar's expertise says it's like pretty good, right? Like that's a card that a lot of decks cast. There's like differences between blue decks and green decks, of course, but I do think there is going to be spots for this. It also has some neat synergy with populate decks because you make a really sick token.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not copying something that isn't legendary.
Like a Brutaclad and stuff.
Yeah, Brutaclad is a great place for this. Like anytime you want a sick token, which there's sort of been more and more decks that do that, like make a copy of target token, or like if you have an anointed procession on board, you get 2 of these. There's plenty of token synergies that are going to make this feel like
you really just
very
need to make
synergistic
one
cool
really cool token, and then you have ways to copy your tokens.
Copy your own anointed procession, and then you get 2 more dragons, and they're both anointed processions.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. I mean, you have a clone deck. I've built clone decks.
Yeah.
Your opponents play cool things.
They do, yeah.
So that's one of the really big upsides of this. When I first read it, I thought it was just stuff I control, which definitely puts a cap on it, because when you're behind, those kind of cards are really bad.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
If you're ahead, this is going to be good. And if you're behind, a lot of times it will still be good.
For sure. All right. Those are the cycles. There's a lot of them for us to go through. We're going to get into some more specific cards now, starting with a little white dog. It's Ainok Strike Leader.
Is it the dog or is it the rider?
There's a little dog on a big cat.
Oh, okay.
He's a dog man. Like you
Dog
do
riding
look
a
at this
cat.
art and
Yeah.
you're like, that's a dog? And you're like, no, that's a cat. It's the dog is the guy.
Got it. The dog is riding the cat.
Yeah. Oh, how
And they're
the
going to find
turntables
Will.
have turned. They're going to find Will.
I heard Will was over here.
They're like, no, the Mardu will.
Oh, crap.
Obviously.
Turn around.
One in a white for a 2/2 dog warrior. Whenever you attack with this creature and or your commander, for each opponent, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. Then it has an ability that says sacrifice this creature. Creature tokens you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Okay, so this turns your commander into Adeline? Like,
We get so much.
That's what it says, right?
Yeah.
Like,
You get so much for 2 mana now.
oh my God. So you play this on 2, you attack with it, you get 3 bodies, and now when some people start having blockers for 2/2s, you're like, that's okay, my commander can still attack. So you have your commander's making the bodies. You don't have to sacrifice these bodies. This isn't mobilize, they hang around.
Yep.
Also, why is it goblins?
Why don't they have lifelink?
What? Duh.
It's just weird. We know
Those are Jeskai goblins. These are Mardu goblins. It's totally different. This card's sweet. I mean, like, if this thing makes you...
Even if it didn't have that last ability,
Yeah.
it's still really good.
It's still really good.
It's just like, and it does this, and it does that. What the heck?
Yeah, if this thing can attack, or your commander can attack, or you have tokens, it's good.
Yeah, I just don't even, like, breaking down where it's like, okay, so you get a 2/2, that costs, I guess, 1 of the mana, and then you get the mobilize thing, and then I guess that's the other mana, but then you get the commander also does the thing, so that should be another mana, and then it has this other ability that sort of protect, so it should cost 4 mana maybe?
Probably.
At least 3. It just seems way, way efficient and undercosted. It just is very, like, anytime you just get this amount of stuff for that little mana, it's Ledger Shredder,
And it's a
Fairy
dog.
Mastermind. Usually only blue gets these.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so good. It feels like a blue 2-drop.
Yeah, this card's great. If you're in a token deck, obviously, if you're in any deck where your commander can attack or cares about attacking, and you have sack outlets or you have token ETB stuff or anything, this is going to go a long way.
The only white decks it doesn't really want it are just like really controlly ones, but for almost all the rest, they're they want to attack. They want creatures on the board. They're going to,
This thing in Ishin, like Adeline's already good in Ishin.
It goes with your welcoming vampires and your mentor for the meeks and all that kind of stuff too. It just is exactly what a lot of white decks want to do, and it's just the price on it is just so good. I mean,
it's like it's so cheap. So if you have Anthem effects or Impact Tremors, it's
Are you playing a deck? Okay.
All right. Well, happy to help.
It's probably good.
All right. Up next is a dragon.
Yes, it is Caldera Pyremaw. It is 3 red for a 3/3 flying dragon. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then this creature deals damage equal to its power to target opponent. To target opponent, not each opponent. So you cast an instant or sorcery with this out, it becomes a 4/4, deals 4 to one of your opponents. And if you chain together multiples, it'll obviously then do 5, then do 6, blah, blah, blah.
So this is predictably in the Jeskai precon,
Yep.
because it cares about you casting instants and sorceries. As always, like payoffs in instant and sorcery decks are really hard to find spots for, especially expensive ones, especially expensive creature ones, because it just doesn't have a ton of crossover. So I think what I was looking at to figure out if this card is good enough to be 5 mana it was like, okay, how fast of a clock is this?
Yeah.
Like how it's
how
obviously
much damage will it
exponential.
do in comparison to the other things we run that are like this?
So we talked about Gutter Snipe earlier, and I think that is like a very traditional closer in this kind of deck. And obviously it's 2 less mana, so we expect a little bit less from it. Why doesn't he have a lifelink? He's a goblin. Gutter Snipe with lifelink.
Oh my God.
God. So I was like, okay, let's just compare Gutter Snipe to Caldera Pyremaw.
Yeah.
And it is sort of what you expect. The Gutter Snipe, the first instant and sorcery you do, deals 6 damage, and for every one after that, it's 6 damage.
Right. It's just multiples of 6 because you got 3 opponents.
The Pyremaw only deals damage to target opponent, but it escalates.
Right.
So it gets bigger each time. The first instant and sorcery you cast deals 4, so it's less than the Gutter Snipe. The second one deals a total of 9 because
deals
it's
4 then
4
5.
plus the 5, so it's 9 damage on the second one.
But the Gutter Snipe's done 12 at that
done
point.
12 damage at that point.
Okay.
So you're still behind on the Gutter Snipe. After the third instant and sorcery, the Caldera Pyremaw has done 15 because it's an additional 6.
And Gutter Snipe has done 18.
Done 18, still behind Gutter Snipe.
Yep.
At 4 spells, the Caldera does 22 and the Gutter Snipe deals 24.
Or has done, yep.
Has done 24.
We're getting closer.
Close. And then by 5 spells, they have both done a total of 30 damage.
Okay.
5 spells is where we start to hit parity.
Yeah, and I would assume after the 6th spell and beyond, the Pyremaw starts to pull ahead of the Gutter Snipe slowly.
Because it is doing more and more damage each one.
Right, Gutter Snipe's just doing the same amount of damage
6,
every time.
6,
Pyramaw's
6,
saying like,
6.
yeah, I'm doing slightly more every time. So eventually it will eclipse it.
So that was very interesting to me. I was like, okay, so you have to have cast 6 spells for the Pyremaw to be up on Gutter Snipe. And that's just non-combat damage. Of course, this is a flyer that is also growing and can probably...
It probably
get in for
represents
some
more
amount of
damage earlier as far as like when it starts doing a thing because, yeah, you can attack for 4, you can attack for 5.
Right.
Which will kind of... Gutter Snipe rarely can attack because it's a overcosted 2/2.
Right.
But again... You also can probably cast your spells earlier because you cast Gutter Snipe earlier and you have mana left over, right? Like you get 2 more mana too, so that's at least 1 or 2 spells, which means, yeah. It all kind of adds up to the Pyremaw's not that great, it looks like.
I looked at this the first time, I was like, whoa, what a cool, like, closer. Like, it's funny. You get a big dragon and you get to really snowball off, and it's like a clear Stormwind con.
Yeah.
And then you do the math, and you're like, this is really slow. It's very slow. 5 spells is like, if you can cast 5 spells, there's a lot of ways to win by casting 5 spells. And it usually is not going to cost you 5 mana to get started.
Well, and the way sort of chaining together spells tends to work is you want mana to do it. A 5 CMC thing is just naturally harder to get going. You probably have to stick it and wait and go.
Yeah.
And that's just a lot harder of a proposition than Gutter Snipe, which comes out earlier at a time when, a lot of times people will be like, well, I do need to deal with that, but not right now. But when they're like, okay, you're going to untap with 6 or 7 mana, I might have to kill that thing right away. You might not even get back with it. It's just like, I don't want to spend that much mana on my thing because then you also don't have the option later in the game when you've got, 10 mana or so to stick it and then go off in the same turn, which Gutter Snipe you sort of can do often. The only payoff I really like at a high casting cost, something like Stormkilled Artist, because it gives you the mana back.
Right.
Or Burgi or something, which are both broken. So
And
I'm
both
glad it's
cheaper
not
than
this. Yeah. But like, I don't want to go to 5 with my payoff because in a spells deck, because it just takes away one of your more powerful options, which is like hold it in hand until I'm going to go off. This you really can't do it. This is like put it out, cross fingers, and then try to go off.
It also has the commander political problem of being a big dragon that looks scarier than it is.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't like playing cards in Commander that aren't as good as everyone else will think they are.
Right.
Like, we had to do math to be like, this isn't that good.
True.
And so you play this big dragon and they look at it and you're like, that's going to get bigger and bigger and it's going to do more and more damage and that damage could be to me.
Right.
And you're like...
But it is slow.
It is slow.
Yeah, but that won't. Yeah, you won't believe that.
So it's kind of a shame because it is like it feels like a cooler card, but it's also going to be a lot scarier.
Yeah.
Speaking of dragons, is a big one. This is Colossal Grave-Reaver.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but colossal means big.
Big.
It is big.
6 and a black and a green.
It also
8
costs a
mana
lot, yeah.
altogether for a 7/6 with flying. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put one of them onto the battlefield.
So the second part doesn't have to be from its own mill ability. If you're milling in other ways,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It puts them on the battlefield. So
Yeah.
it's just like it says one or more, right? So just any creatures.
So if one or
put
more
one.
are put in, you get to pick one.
And so if you milled 10, you'd only
Yeah,
get one.
you get one.
But if you mill three times, you get 3 if you hit a
If you
creature
hit on 3.
every time.
So the interesting thing about this is, yes, you want a high density of creatures. You want to make sure
Very
when you're
high, yeah.
milling in small like increments that you're going to hit a creature that you can bring back to the battlefield. But in those decks, if you reanimate this and it enters and it mills 3
Yeah,
and
that's
you
the
hit a
thing.
creature, you get another free body.
How many creatures does your Sidisi deck have?
60.
Yeah, it's so good. As soon as I saw this, I go, well, this is going in Rachel's Sidisi deck.
Yeah, it is.
It seems insane.
So you can sacrifice 3 zombies to cast a Dread Return for free, to
Oh my
reanimate
God.
this, to mill 3, to get a zombie from Sidisi and another
one of the
creature.
creatures. Oh my lord! And just every time Sidisi attacks or all
Yeah.
the other mill effects you just cheat stuff out.
Yeah.
Seems nuts. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the point because it is 8 mana and that's sort of the thing that's supposed to keep it in check. But the thing is, this is going in a reanimation deck, right?
Yeah, it's a
It'll have
graveyard
a
deck.
high density of creatures and it cares about its graveyard. So you will not have to cast it.
No, I was no way.
Yeah. I mean, you
Like,
could.
you could.
There's probably a point in the game where like, yeah, I'll cast it if I can, but that's not the primary plan for it.
Yeah, this is a reanimator deck that is a living death deck.
Yeah.
Is sort of the best way to think about it because you want a ton of creatures, you want to be fueling your graveyard. It's less of like a reanimator deck where you have like single target reanimation and are trying to get a big thing because the density of creatures tends to be a little bit lower in those decks. But yeah, if you're like a 50 creature deck, this thing is going to be
I think even
house.
around I think even
45,
around 40.
40?
Yeah, if you've got a lot of self mill and you've got 40 plus creatures,
Yeah. This card's sweet.
it's going to be a lot of value.
Yeah, and it's a big dragon. I also like that it's not legendary. So in decks
Oh
like
my
that,
God,
you can
you
like
could
copy
clone it?
Yeah, and then they mill each other, and you can get more stuff.
Holy crap. That's pretty good.
Seems cool. I'm stoked about it.
So you're saying you should play Sultai with it?
Yeah, you could play Jund probably, but blue. You need
Yeah.
blue for self mill.
For cloning.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
for cloning, yeah.
The next is an equipment. I actually kind of like this equipment, which is weird. Cori-Steel Cutter, 1 and a red for an artifact equipment.
Not Corey.
Corey's like, no, Will.
Don't, Will.
Will, go get Will. Not Corey. Corey and Will. All right. It's equipment for 2 mana, 1 in red. It equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and haste. And then this has flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, get a 1/1 monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it. And then it has an equip cost of 1 in red.
I mean, gee whiz. Where does it end?
It reminds me a little of the white 2-drop from earlier, where you're just like, as you try and break down like where the casting cost is going. This has an equip cost to kind of sort of keep it in check, but it does just auto-equip to the monk you create.
Yeah, you don't need an equip cost.
Yeah, it's...
You cast this, you cast a spell, you make a monk, and now it's a 2/2 with trample and haste.
Yep.
Trample and haste. And okay, so you cast this and you cast opt.
Yep.
You make a monk. This equips. Now you have a 2/2 prowess monk with haste.
Yeah. And then presumably,
And trample.
yeah.
And
maybe
if you cast
2 spells on somebody else's turn, or just any other spell when you're attacking, just to pump your prowess thing. It's just really good in a sort of low to the ground, a lot of cantrippy spells decks, which a lot of the Jeskai stuff is.
It's sort of like a young pyromancer that makes better tokens and only makes 1 per turn, but it also has a higher ceiling than the young pyromancer, which is just like prowess is just a better, more aggressive body. It's just more useful.
It's a lot better too. It's not just a little bit better. They're pretty hard to block because you don't know what they're going to cast during combat. They just tend to get in more. And then once you've got like 3 of them, every spell's giving your board +3/+3. They compound on themselves a lot better.
Yeah.
Like I've died to monk tokens many more times than I've died to elemental creature tokens.
Elementals,
They're good,
yeah,
don't get me
for sure.
wrong, but yeah. Monastery Mentor, I think, it being the other sort of comparison, which is similar. But again, this has added utility too, in some ways better. Just the ability to give something haste at some point. It has a lot of value.
It's also not a creature. It doesn't die in board wipes.
Yep.
Like you keep
So your
the
engine can still go, even when they wipe the board. You're like, cool, you killed all my monks, but I am going to make more.
That's fine. I still have my engine, which also, it doesn't like give you board presence exactly like the equipment itself, but it does improve your board presence. I mean,
and this gives you the ability to create creatures at instant speed as well.
That too.
So you have a lot of flexibility of like, I have this 1 big spell I'll cast, but if somebody attacks me, I'll cast 2 spells, make a blocker, save myself some life. Just, I really like this card. It just feels like it does a lot.
Yeah, my only question for this card is like, is it a spells deck card? Is it an equipment deck card? Is it both? Like, how is this most likely to be played, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot less good if you can't reasonably cast 2 spells on your opponent's turn. You don't have to do that every rotation. Your deck just has to normally be able to do that if it would want to.
Sure.
Because if you don't have enough instants and they're low enough to, low casting cost enough, then I think the utility of a lot of the utility goes away. Yeah.
I do like it in equipment decks where you can like, because the problem in equipment decks is bodies and equipment, right? And this is both bodies and an equipment on 1 card.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So it can,
because if I just happen to draw all my equipment and nothing to put it on, I just cast 2 equipments.
Mask of Memory. Boop, now we have a body.
And if they kill that, I can at least get another one at some point. Yeah,
right.
No, that's a really good point.
So I think it does serve a very strong purpose in both decks, which is bizarre.
Yeah, it's an equipment card and a spells card.
And like even in an equipment deck, you have equipment to cast. Those aren't creatures. You can trigger this prowess thing.
Yeah.
And it just grants haste. We haven't even talked about how haste is busted in Commander.
It is really good.
You can just move this to your Commander and attack with it. And in the
sometimes
meantime,
you just
it's
get people
making
out of
bodies.
nowhere later in the game of just being able to like just cast something and attack with it that they didn't see coming and just couldn't account for. And that can turn the tables.
I think this is a real deal card that we'll see a lot of in Commander.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
All right, moving on to a big old Planeswalker. It's Elspeth Storm Slayer.
Take that, you stupid storm.
Yeah, we're slaying the storm. All right. Sick. Go get him, Elspeth. This is 3 white for a legendary Planeswalker, Elspeth. It has a static ability that says if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many are created instead. She's an anointed procession Planeswalker. She has a plus ability that creates a 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Wait, she'll create 2 because of her static ability. And then she has a 0 ability, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn, flying for an entire rotation. And then -3, destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value of 3 or greater. She enters with 5 loyalty. Okay, so she's an anointed procession that makes tokens, that buffs the team and gives them evasion and removes stuff.
Right.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. There's a lot of cards like this where it's like, has a lot of modes. They're all good. And they're all just a little bit overcosted if you consider the casting cost of Elspeth. But then you got the wrinkle of it is a Planeswalker and you might be able to activate it more than once. You don't know. That's hard to predict when you're deck building. And that scenario tends to happen less often than people assume it will. But it does happen sometimes. So it does combine for a difficult to evaluate card in some ways.
I agree.
But it's still like, it's doing a lot. it's doing things we like to do. It's going to be good. I think that's easy to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the token doubling, we wish it cost 4 and not 5. But Annoying Procession also does not create any tokens. So
Or kill a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This card is, I agree, it's very difficult to evaluate because you're like, yeah. But also it's a Planeswalker in Commander. So, and it's attached to an Anointed Procession that it is going to set off alarm bells.
I know
you
you
are
and I
not going
both-
to untap with this Anointed Procession.
Yeah, you and I both do not like Planeswalkers in Commander, as far as like we don't play them much.
I like ones where they have a big ultimate and that do have a big minus. So
Yeah.
like I like board wipe Planeswalkers that like make it difficult to get at it, or I like payoff Planeswalkers that I like the Tezzeret Master of the Bridge. But this is a setup Planeswalker.
Yeah.
So you need to cast this, keep it, and then do something, which is not easy. And Planeswalkers in general, as a type in Commander, just set off alarm bells and are going to get you attacked. So it is like the downside of it being, the positives of it being a Planeswalker are also sort of set off by the downsides of it being a Planeswalker, where they can remove this for free by just working together and killing it.
And often the table will just do that because it feels kind of free-ish and it is scary to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't like Planeswalkers in general. I'll play a few here and there, but I don't like to encourage the table to team up against me.
Right.
And that's
It's
what a
not good.
Planeswalker usually does.
Yeah.
Just has that natural reaction from the table.
Especially one with like text that we're afraid of stapled to it, you know?
Yeah, and doubling anything
Scary.
we know is powerful. And it's like, hey, if somebody had an Anointing Procession, but you could just attack it to get rid of it, you'd do that, right? Yeah, probably would. Okay, well, that's what they're going to do. So,
But,
yeah.
like if you slam this and put counters on your whole thing and your whole board gains flying, and you can probably kill a player with this. Like that's the other thing is like we have all these downsides, but also
Yeah, it has
there's huge upsides on this card.
it has a combat finisher on it as
Right.
well. So when you're saying like, yeah, it's a Annoying Procession. It's also kind of an Chroma's Will, and then it's also kind of a Swords to Plowshares. And it's like all those cards are really good and we play them. So it's hard to imagine that one card that has all that stuff would not be good.
It has to be good.
Yeah.
But also, what happens once it hits the table?
But also, I don't really want to play it.
I know. I'm like afraid. Like I
It's
wouldn't want it on
interesting.
my board.
Yeah, I'm in my brain. I'm like, I'd rather just have a Chroma's Will if that's what I need, and
Yeah.
I'd rather just have Anointing Procession if that's what I want.
I don't know. It's a lot of like weird nuts and bolts. I think it's gonna like having this in play is going to be a big deal to be like, okay,
Here's what I think.
it was really good here.
Yeah, here's what I think. I think it's going to be very powerful. I
Yeah.
think it won't win you very many games.
Yeah, I like that answer.
Yeah, it'll be very powerful.
Yeah.
But it'll cause you to lose for not the reasons necessarily that are directly related to what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Just what it could do and how the tables react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. I'm again. You read it and you're like, yeah,
All right, I really like this next one.
me too.
Yeah, it's amazing. You read this and you're like, there must be a lot of cards that do this, and then
No.
you're like, there are not, because I've looked many times.
Yes.
and you're always like, there must be a lot of cards that do this. There's not. Hardened Tactician, 1 white black for a 2/4 human warrior. Simple ability just says pay 1, sacrifice a token, draw a card. It is honestly like quite hard to find a reusable 1 mana cost sacrifice something to draw.
Yep.
It just doesn't really exist. You can tap and do it maybe for once. So you can do it once per turn. You can
Sacrifice very like specific things, maybe.
which this is. It says a token, but
Token.
still, it's like that to me just tells you what deck it's going in, and in those decks, it will be really good.
Yeah, I think this is a very powerful card. The first card I thought of was your Teysa deck, where like
Yep.
it's so hard to find ways to sacrifice the clues without paying the clue cost.
Yep.
And this, you pay half the clue cost, but you still get the card.
Amazing.
And that's a huge discount.
Yep.
Half is an enormous deal. And now your treasures are also clues, and now your foods are also clues, and they're better clues.
In some ways, it's a skull clamp for non-creature tokens.
Yeah.
And still a pretty good
And
skull
still
clamp
creature
for
tokens.
creature tokens. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like that's how I was like, oh, it's a lot like skull clamp when you think about it. Not as good in some ways, but better in others.
Yeah.
And it will go in a lot of the similar decks. Not all. This.
Yeah.
Yeah. I we'll see this a lot. It's 2 colors, so it's
Yeah.
kind of capped there. But like, this is a card that I've just wished existed many times.
Me too. It's the kind of card that you feel like there has to be one, and then all of them cost 2.
Yeah, it's
all
like,
of the ones that repeatedly do it costs like 1 and a black or 2
or you got to
colorless.
tap them.
Or you got to tap them.
Yeah.
Or it's Yawgmoth and it's $40.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's why Yawgmoth's good, but that only sacrifices creatures. That doesn't sacrifice the artifacts.
Yep.
So this card's sweet. I think it's going to be the kind of card that people forget about and remember for the next 10 years because it's just
amazing.
It's
it took them
colors.
30 years to design this card too, though. Like it feels like it's very simple text. So kudos to whoever finally like put all those words together.
Yeah, and it's
Probably Gavin. I'm
it's
gonna assume
one
it's
line.
Gavin.
It's always Gavin.
Yeah.
Everything good.
I gotta
everything
say
bad.
some nice things because we're always like, Gavin, why'd you do that for the bad things only? Gavin, nice work on that one. He's like, I had nothing to do with that, you guys.
That's yours.
And then
Gavin.
everybody at Wizards is mad at me because you guys give me credit for everything. It probably wasn't Gavin. It was probably another designer, and they have a whole team of awesome designers.
All right, we're moving on to a big one.
This is a doozy. I had to reread this like 17 times.
I didn't see anybody talking about it online and like posted a tweet to be like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
What is happening?
The first time we saw this, I was like, wait, okay, well, I got to read it again. I missed something. My brain was like, that can't be right.
And it turns out a lot of people were talking about it, so it's fine. It's Herd Heirloom. 1 and a green for an artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. It's fixed. Then
Quite a drawback on a green card.
tap until end of turn. Target creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
What?
So this is 5 color fixing on a 2 mana rock that also gives you card draw as long as you have creatures. But it also gives you a way to cast creatures.
It gives the creature the way to get in to get the combat damage.
So
it
you
also
can draw a
just
card.
gives the thing that green decks all the time. Like, man, I wish I had trample.
This definitely feels like the kind of card that was designed where you're like, well, it's only good for creatures, so we need to like give it a little bit. What if you don't have any creatures and all your creatures are on the board? So we have to have another way to tap it give it benefit.
Honestly, like, let's say it just gave trample.
Yeah.
Still be pretty good.
Still pretty good.
At instant speed? Because then you're like,
Yeah.
crap. Which one do whatever one I block, they give the other one,
I didn't even think about it being at instant speed.
Yeah. It's like, and that's without the card draw part, it would still be good. And then it has a card draw component to it. Why doesn't that activated ability, the second one, cost any mana? It's really pushed. Like 2 mana rock, already good. Yes, downside creature deck, fine, whatever. But that's the lowest downside you could really come up with for a green deck. I think.
This card's great.
Yeah. What do you need? 30 to 35 creatures at
That's
a minimum?
fine. That's like one of my lesser creature decks.
I would say if you can run Great Henge, then you can run this card, right? Because they want the same things.
Yeah. You want big creatures.
Well, yeah, you just want creatures.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about like you casting a 4 mana commander on turn 3 that has 4 power that now draws you a card. Like I
so good.
That's bananas.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, honestly, if you have less than 30 creatures, let's say you have 25, but your commander is a 4-drop, then you maybe can just play this anyways. Because even just getting just be like, this card will get my commander out of turn early and give it the ability to draw me a card.
Yeah.
If you draw 1 card off of it and it casts your commander 1 turn early, if it did nothing else the rest of the game, like, I only drew instants and sorceries after that, I think it was still fine. It wasn't like the best card you've ever had, but that's the lowest. That's the floor of it.
It's also 5 color fixing.
Yeah.
It doesn't add green. It adds any color.
Yeah.
That's like it in like a 4 color deck.
Yeah. That matters a lot.
It matters. It's a second arcane signet in terms of fixing because most of the time what you're doing with the 2 mana rock is casting your 4 mana commander.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird.
It's
like how Jeweled Lotus is a downside, where you're just like, it's casting my commander.
Downside.
That's all I want to do.
Yeah, what? It can't be that powerful. I can
That's
only
what
do
I'm
one
doing.
thing. Yeah.
This card's really good.
Yeah, we've come across 3 now 2 mana things that we think are really good. There was the white 2-drop that had
Ainok Strike Leader.
And then we've got the Cori-Steel Cutter, and now we've got this, which I think is nice. They're not giving one to blue yet that we've seen. Blue's got enough.
Yeah.
But it seems like there is one really push 2-drop in commander in each color so far, and this I think is even head and shoulders above those other two.
And it's frustrating because it just seemed like we were good. Like if we were putting
Green certainly doesn't need this.
No, like if we were putting upside on rocks, they were 3 mana.
Yeah.
Like that was the rule that we have set
God,
is like if there's upside on mana rocks, they were 3 mana. And this is upside on a mana rock that is now 2 mana.
Are we moving to is this the start of like, over the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to start to see little upsides on
we can't.
2 mana rocks?
They can't. Right? Like and I know that like there's some designer being like, but you can only put it in green decks, so it's fine. But it goes everything's green, it's Commander.
Yeah, what percentage of green decks is this going? And especially because they're the creature color too. Yeah. So
I did.
Like how many decks does Great Henge go in?
I did numbers on how many of the top 100 commanders are green.
Yeah.
And I did it for the 4 power thing, but it's great. There's 53 of the top 100 commanders are green.
Yeah, so it already goes in 53 of the top decks for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think you need about 30 creatures, but there are instances where you could justify less. But if you have Great Henge in your deck, you're saying my deck has a lot of creatures in it.
Yeah.
And Great Henge we know is one of the more powerful cards, so that's a good signpost for like how often will we see this thing? About probably as often as we see Great Henge.
Yeah, this is not Great Henge, but it is also not 9 mana. And I
think in some ways it's better than Great Henge. I mean,
it's just 2.
Yeah, and I love drawing cards. This draws cards. It's 2 though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
It's really good. Okay. Yada.
Put it in your deck if it's green and you have 30 creatures.
All right, we're moving on to a white card.
What sucks is I play a lot of decks that don't have a high creature count, so I don't get to play it that much. But I still have decks that'll have it. Trust me. But
the next one is a white card. This is from the Mardu precon. It's Ironwill Forger. 3 and a white for a creature orc artificer. It's a 3/3 with lieutenant. Lieutenant's back. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, if you control your commander, target non-legendary creature you control gains myriad until end of turn.
This is Will of the Mardu if he's been locked in a cave for a little while.
That's true. He's Iron Will. It's Iron Man, but he builds his own suit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. So this card's really cool. I don't know how powerful it is. I just think it's like the kind of effect that Commander players really like and have been trying to put in decks for a long time. And it just sort of does it as long as you have your commander in play.
Yeah, my immediate thought was Blade of Selves, which had its moment in the sun, but it's kind of fallen out because the equip cost is so high.
Right.
This has a lot better chance of actually like triggering and getting you some fun tokens for at least a minute, because you can play it and then just attack with something else and have that happen. Some hoops to jump through, I think, obviously.
Definitely some hoops. You have to have this 4-mana creature in play. You have to have another creature that you can target and attack with that isn't legendary.
So it can't be your
and
commander.
You have to have your commander.
Yeah.
So it's 3 creatures minimum in play the turn that you play it. After that, you can technically give this myriad, but that's not very good.
Yeah, because it won't trigger a second time because it won't see the attack. You only get that, right? Like the myriad tokens it creates won't have seen when the attack got declared.
Right. So you just sort of make 2 3/3s.
Yeah, if you could make a couple clones of it, it might be cool. But yeah.
So there's a couple of ways to make this like super cool. Obviously in Blink decks it's really good because you get 2 copies and you don't really care if it survives combat.
Yeah, Myriad and my Mole Drifter, thank you.
Nice, because it can fly, so you can probably get some attacks on it. So I like it in Blink decks, and it doesn't feel as like terrifying in Blink decks. So maybe you won't draw a ton of ire for it.
Yeah, it's like okay, everyone's gonna take 2 and you're gonna draw 6. That was cute, but it's not like oh my god, how could we win?
Right. It's good with extra combats.
Yep.
Because
the tokens do stick around for those extra combats, yep.
I like it with like the most recent one, Full Throttle, because you get 2 extra combats, which is cool, and then you get more, it sort of snowballs.
That's pretty sweet.
So I think that's how I imagine it is in sort of a Boros ETB style deck.
Yeah.
That can either populate or it's doing some tricks to keep tokens around, like a Sundial of the Infinite or something like that.
Yeah, Sundial's pretty good with it because you just get to keep the tokens. And it could play a little bit of... Not the exact same, but you mentioned earlier how just making a token of something interesting can be useful. This could play in that space a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a fun card. I like this. And
it's also good when you double up attack triggers, like with the Ishin or the...
Oh, because double Myriad tokens.
Windcrag Siege.
Windcrag Siege, yeah.
Aha!
Windcrag Siege, yeah. You got it. You did.
Windcrag.
That's true. I didn't think about doubling attack triggers on Myriad.
Now it's got,
really good.
Yeah, it's got Myriad triggers twice. We're moving on to, this is a much hyped card as well.
Overrated.
Introduce us.
All right. A lot of chatter about this one online.
So much chatter.
Yeah. It is Mistrise Village. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain or forest. You tap it for a blue, or you can pay a blue and tap it, and the next spell you cast this turn can't be countered.
So there's a lot of sort of weird things about this. I want to specify up top, you have to activate this before you cast the spell that you want to not be countered. You can't like cast a spell, have somebody try and counter that, and then target that spell.
Correct. It doesn't give the spell hexproof.
Right. It says the next spell I'm going to cast, that one has protection.
You basically have to cast and let this resolve.
Yeah.
And then whatever the next thing is can't be countered.
Right. So this is not the first land to have this ability. Cavern of Souls is probably the most famous of it, but Cavern of Souls is free. You don't have to pay any mana for it. Or Boseiju, who shelters all, is like a played card, a little less over the years. That gives
it's the closest comp, though, I think.
And it's colorless is like sort of the big weirdness about Boseiju is it has to have a colorless pip in it to be able to make it uncounterable.
Right. Which I think is a card when you're sort of in your early commander career, it looks really attractive to you. And I remember putting it in early decks. And I remember over time just realizing that like it just doesn't do anything a lot of the time. You're not in scenarios that often where you know they've got a counter or it really makes sense to do that. And then they still manage to counter you sometimes because of the way turns play out and, you know, how you have to sequence things and you don't see it coming. And it's like, I had the Boseiju, but it still didn't stop what I wanted it to stop that I was worried about during deck building.
I tapped it earlier because it was colorless mana and I was just didn't plan.
Yeah. And the reason I think this is particularly overrated, it's in blue.
Yeah.
And blue already has an answer to counter spells. They have counter spells. Yeah. So this ability is useful when you're in another color because they don't have the ability to combat counter spells as well, right? Like green's like, what can I do about your counter spell? Not much, really. And so maybe, so maybe I want some, exactly. Yeah. So maybe I want something just because I have no access to interact with that type of spell you've got. But blue is not sitting there wishing they had this. So that's why I think this card is like, I don't know. I don't see myself running it. I know everyone was up in arms about it, but it's like, you just don't need that ability.
I think the more competitive your meta is, the better it is. Yeah. Because the more you're expecting aggressive counterspells. That when you're worried about your stuff being countered to the point where you are running a land that could come in tapped, could come in untapped, but like this isn't a free land.
Yeah. It's pretty specific, the come in and tap part, but yeah, it definitely can. Yeah.
It definitely can. You have to be worried about so many counter spells that you're like, okay, I'm ready for this deck to protect my big spell. So that's already a bar. Like if you're in a casual meta, there's not that many counter spells. Like I think I run 3 in my blue decks, you know, like I'm just not that worried about it. Not to mention there's Sink into Stupor, which bounces things from the stack, which doesn't count as counterspelling. It sends you back to your hand. That just blows through this. Yep. Mindbreak traps that exile it from the stack. There's many ways that this is not going to protect you. And it's 2 mana.
Yeah, it makes whatever you're doing cost 2 more mana. Which is why even in competitive metas, it's going to be a lot to ask. I think it is good, a lot better in CEDH where counterspells are like trying to stop combos and stuff.
The weird thing about, I was talking to somebody about this recently, about it in CEDH specifically, and CEDH is in a meta right now where instead of countering things, they're just trying to win on top of each other. Like they're all using instant speed stuff and then being like, okay, you have a win on the stack, I'll win on top of that. Instead of countering anything on the stack, they just win here.
Win over on top of it.
So like it doesn't matter
this won't
if
do anything
you,
either.
This just says,
it's
okay,
actually actively bad. You have less ways to interact because you've
tapped
2 mana out.
So it's like puts you in this weird position where you're like, okay, well, I can't be countered, but I also can't, like if they went on top of it, it doesn't do anything. And then beyond that, most of the time in CEDH, you're trying to resolve 2 spells. So this only protects one of them.
The next one, yeah.
They just
okay, cool. I can't counter that one. What are you going to do with it, though?
Okay, I won't counter your Thassa's Oracle. Great. But I'll counter the consult.
And they can see this, so you can't even like sandbag or sequence in a weird way because they're like, well, I know what goes with it, so I just won't stop that and I'll stop the next thing.
Right.
And if you try to do the next thing first, I know that's, I think people were excited about it because it feels free on a land or whatever, but I don't know. I don't plan on running it.
The one thing that I did see people mention that I want to address is they were like, it helps you fight through Ward. Because you can use this to target a removal spell.
But didn't you just pay Ward 2?
You just paid Ward 2. You just paid. You did.
So it helps you with Ward 3 and
it
above.
helps you with Ward 3 and above, or like Ward Sacrifice a Permanent, like all that stuff. Ward Pay 7 life, I guess.
Sure.
But you just gave it Ward 2.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I think it's all right. I think there's metas where it will be impactful, but I don't think it's this like slam it in every blue deck type of card.
Yeah.
Up next, I wanted to just mention this cycle because I think this is cool. The Dragonstorms. I get to play with Roiling Dragonstorm, the blue one, at the pre-release, and this card is
That card seems nuts.
bananas.
I had the white one, which was quite good, but
Yeah.
the red one seems cracked.
So the blue one is the one that I think we'll see the most play in Commander just generally. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. When it enters, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And then whenever a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand.
Yep.
So it's a reusable, like Chart a Course type of effect that if you have any amount of dragons or changelings or your commander is a dragon, you can use multiple times, which is just cool.
Yep. It's just a draw engine in a dragon deck. How many dragons do you think you need for this to be good?
In your deck, I mean, like, you have 10 or something like that. Or if you have 1 in the command zone, you cast this twice. Like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So I like this idea. I like these cards. I think if you have a dragon commander, you look at them. Or if you have, obviously, you're in a dragon synergy deck, you can look at them. But it also has upside that it's just on a permanent. So you can sacrifice it. You can recur it. It adds devotion, all that stuff.
Is there anything to be said for enchantress decks that, I don't know, they would have to have some dragons, but because you're bouncing an enchantment and recasting it?
I think so. Like, it gives you an enchantment cast trigger, right? So at the very least, I think playing...
You would have to have a dragon in your command zone or a decent amount of dragons in your deck, which those decks don't usually have, so I don't know, but...
I think I would probably, like... Enchantress is usually green and white, and the green and white ones are pretty expensive. But it being on an enchantment does give you some amount of upside. If you can copy enchantments, this is another cool thing. Like if a permanent just gives you an additional benefit. So I think these are worth looking at. There's a whole cycle. The red one like cascades and hits up to 8. So white one makes tokens. The black one surveils. I think the black one's the worst. And the green is like an explosive vegetation, right? But then, it's 4 mana to get 2 lands. Okay. We move on to this next one.
One of my faves, to no one's surprise, Songcrafter Mage. Oh, I wonder what that's a reference to. It's a green, a blue, and a red, so 3 mana for a 3/2. Human Bard has flashed and says, when this creature enters, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains Harmonize until end of turn. Its Harmonize cost is equal to its mana cost. And this is a creature that you could tap to reduce that said Harmonize cost.
Yep. So this works like Snapcaster, so you still have to obey timing restrictions. It doesn't let you cast sorceries at instant speed because it gives it the Harmonize cost until end of turn. But you can cast instants at instant speed, which is great, and you can cast sorceries on your turn.
Yep, Snapcaster Mage and Torrential Gearhulk had a baby kind of card because it's a lot like Snapcaster Mage, but it comes with a reduction. It won't cast it for free necessarily, but it'll cast it for cheaper than it probably is, which Snappy doesn't do.
Right.
And I love both Snapcaster Mage and Torrential Gearhulk. They're amazing, and every time you have them, you feel like what bad could happen, and this is another one of those. Yeah,
Snapcaster basically adds like a 2-mana tax to give something flashback. This one is functionally free because it itself reduces the cost of it for 3.
Right.
So as long as it has 3 colorless pips, then you're paying exactly the cost for the Harmonize thing. And that's assuming, you don't have a creature with higher power than 3.
Right, that's true. If something else has higher power than 3, it'll reduce by more. Yeah, it's just that there's an often play pattern of like, all right, flash this in, block a thing, get some value, maybe remove something, get something, or get a counter spell to stop a really bad thing from happening. The versatility on these cards is very high because it's not just, it's card selection, right? Whatever's in your graveyard, you do have access to those things. Yeah. I think you have to be running a lot of instants for these to be good.
My favorite spot for it, the most over-the-top spot, I think, is X spells, where you're casting like big hydras and you're casting big spells. So you have like the combination that makes it really powerful of like high power and big mana sinks.
Yeah, if you have like a Brain Geyser or something in there, you just like tap my 8 power thing and just get 8 free cards out of that.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. It's in Temur, so it's going to be really narrow, the decks that it can go in, but I will play it whenever I can.
This next one's very cool as well. This is in the Sultai precon. It is Steward of the Harvest. 3 and a green for a 3/3 creature human druid. When this creature enters, exile up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard. Creatures you control have all activated abilities of all land cards exiled with this creature.
This card's very cool.
It's so cool.
I don't know what decks it goes in. I mean, landfall decks probably, but like if you can pull off some cool stuff with it.
I was like, we were talking about all of the different ways that you could use it, and it was just like, okay, what if you did it with fetch lands? Now, like all your creatures are secure tribe elders.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, every creature's a Steve.
Yeah, like what if you did it with bounce lands? Now all your creatures tap for 2 mana. That's cool.
That's really cool.
And then I was like, what if you did it with strip mine? And now all your creatures are.
And somebody went, that's not cool.
No. No. Stop there.
Nykthos, Crypt of Agadeem, I think is a really good one because you're going to want to be in a self-mill deck to get a bunch of lands in your graveyard. If a deck has Crypt of Agadeem already, it's a good candidate for this just because it's probably self-milling.
Is it easy?
Yeah, and you turn all your creatures into Crypt of Agadeems, and you're like, how many creatures are there? 13. How many creatures do you have on the battlefield? 5. Holy crap.
Like,
that,
okay.
That game's over. Yeah, you got like 90 mana?
Now I don't know what to do with all this mana. Yeah, it's there's a ton of really neat things that you can do with this. I think like as lands come out, there will be even more options. Like we were talking about Mazavith. Now you have like 4 Mazaviths.
Cool. That's my dream.
That's cool.
Yeah. Against Rachel. You'd be like, what the hell do
I'll
I do?
maze this and this and this and this.
Yeah, crap. How do I deal with 7
And then I'll untap all my creatures.
I was thinking Inkmoth Nexus.
Oh, that's
Blink
fun.
Moth Nexus.
So it turns them into a 1/1 with flying
And Infect.
and infect. Yeah.
So you're like,
if you
all
have
my
counters
creatures,
on
I'll
it or
just
something.
I'll just tap 5.
Yeah.
You're dead in a turn or 2.
That's cool. Yeah, all of your creatures are flying infect creatures. That's sweet.
It's interesting because it doesn't take away their other like abilities and stuff, right? So even like Creeping Tar Pit, you could just sort of use. It would turn the thing into a 3/2, but it would give it unblockable. So you might be able to like all your creatures could be unblockable. Might have some advantages to you, stuff like that.
There's so many like weird, neat tricks that you can do with this card. Like, and not to mention they gain all 3 abilities if you have 3 lands.
Yes.
Like you only need to hit a fetch land and it's cool and interesting. But if you have like, okay, all my creatures are Mazaviths, but also they're bounce lands, but also they're
The bounce land thing is just so good.
Like
it's like double Cryptolith, right?
Yeah, and now. They also have like one other weird activated ability. And you're like, okay, so all of my creatures are like these weird modal creatures now.
Yeah, they're like Manadork Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at Minamo School at Water's Edge.
Ew,
what?
I'm
sure there's nutso broken things you can do with it because untapping legendaries on all your creatures seems like...
Yeah, this is an activated ability of blue, tap, untap target, legendary, permanent.
Permanent, yeah.
So you're like, okay, so all of my creatures untap stuff and all of my creatures are also Lotus Fields.
Just Lotus Field or Lotus Field, by the way, is better than even a bounce land. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be, and they're still, if they were legendary creatures, are still legendary creatures. So and they have the other 2 abilities that the land had. So like, you know, if they're Nykthoses or something and Minamos, then all of a sudden, you know, I don't know. There's got to be combos and infinites in here with things like Minamo. I didn't take the time to figure them out, but and they're probably so fringe that like, you know, who knows?
Also, like way easier to untap creatures than it is to untap lands in like certain colors and green and white specifically. So there's very interesting things that can be done here. I mean, like we just named a ton, but it's the kind of card that makes you think.
Yeah, I was just like looking at every land with activated abilities.
This is the kind of card that does those kind of things that you're like, okay, wait. What if it's a high market?
Yeah.
Is that good? I can tap it to sacrifice itself.
That's got to be good.
That's got to be good.
Yeah,
probably. I was trying to figure out where this goes, and I was like, anything that is like a go wide lands deck is, I think, where it's going to be best. The Necrobloom, it is disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
Because Necrobloom fills its graveyard, and with very specific lands, especially lands that you can loop and have sacrifice abilities, and then every time lands enter, you get more creatures. So now you have a huge board of creatures, and they all have these abilities. So it just does sort of all of the things.
That's really sweet.
But Omnath Locus of Rage is also really sweet, because turning your elementals that when they die, you deal damage into fetch lands that get more elementals.
Amazing. Titania probably really good too, because you turn all your creatures into fetch lands.
And that's like a graveyard deck.
Yeah, and it makes tokens too, right?
Yeah, it makes 5/3s.
So
they don't have haste though, so you can't like tap them to sacrifice them.
Yeah, you do it on end step.
Yeah, and then you do it again.
Reload, and then you sit there and you do it on end step and you reload. But it's just like
that's sick.
Yeah,
That's really fun. I don't know if it's good, but it's cool.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see people do stuff that we were like, oh, you could do that too.
Yeah,
like, that's what's fun
a
about
good
that card. Yeah.
All right. Next one is a little less interesting, but I like it nonetheless.
All right, it is Stillness in Motion. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill 3 cards. Then, if your library has no cards in it, exile this enchantment and put 5 cards from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. Mm-hmm. So echoes of Doomsday a little bit there. But I don't think that's a primary use case.
No, I would think of this as just a self-mill engine. Yeah. Like, we're talking about cards that we wished existed for a long time. Yeah. This is exactly the kind of card where it's like, all right, my self-mill engine is online on turn 2, and now I can start doing other things. It's just going to be a great role filler in blue self-mill decks, especially if they don't have black. Yeah,
a lot of decks still play Perpetual Timepiece. You know, you compare it to Mesmeric Orb. The bar I always look at and sort of like lets me know like what's okay is Stitcher Supplier, which you always just end up putting in, and you're
I just love it.
Yeah, but you're like, okay, that tells you it's harder to mill than you think it is, because that's not a great card when you just look at it. So it tells you like there's not a lot of like just pay 2 mana and this thing will mill me for 7 every turn. Like that doesn't exist. So,
yeah, you have to be careful with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we're looking at 2 mana for something that mills you 3 every single turn is like a pretty good rate.
I think that's quite good.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like about it is it can replace your Mesmeric Orbs in decks that aren't mill decks.
Yeah.
Because, like, you put Mesmeric Orb in decks as a self-mill engine, and then the table freaks out at you and removes your Mesmeric Orb.
Or you really help some people.
Or you just die. Yeah, or you really help
Sometimes
your opponents.
Sometimes you play Mesmeric Orb, and you're like, at the end of that game, you're like, I just made Jimmy win that game because his graveyard was way better than mine.
And nobody's going to remove this, but people lose their minds if you play a Mesmeric Orb. It's just like a nice engine that doesn't freak anybody out and gets your deck online.
Yeah. You can also do the thing where you're planning to mill yourself out and sort of make a Doomsday pile and win that way.
That's cool.
Or just you're planning to mill yourself out and this will stop you from dying at that moment to it.
Yeah, that's true. If you're in a self-mill deck that you sometimes deck yourself.
I should maybe put it in a lot of decks because if people alter Dementia you, then at least you have...
That's true, you'll be safe.
Get one more turn.
You'll be safe.
I might still do that.
Up next is Temur Battlecrier. This is a green, a blue, and a red for a 4/3. It's an Orc Ranger on a little fuzzy pony. It says, during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Nice reducer. Little pony.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cost reducer that, like, if this has 4 power, then it reduces all your spells by 1, and if your commander has 4 power, then it reduces all your spells by 2, and that's really powerful.
Just 2 of that is really, it's just your spells, too.
Yeah.
It's not even like creatures or instances or just any of them.
Signets are free now. Like, Cultivate costs 1, like that, and that's just the minimum of having, like, this and your commander. I don't think you play this if you don't have a commander that doesn't have that, or like 4 power or higher. Or you don't have like a ton of creatures.
Yeah, I think that if that's part of your theme, maybe that my creatures are big. Mm-hmm. But you don't need a lot. I don't, because this by itself is pretty close to just playable, especially if you just compare it to like Foundry Inspector, which we play and sees a lot of play. And one of the more powerful things you can do in Artifact decks is just stack that ability up. But this is 3 mana. It's a 4/3. It will reduce all your spells by 1. If you are in Temur, it's not that bad of a card. If you just consider like, well, would I play Foundry Inspector if I'm in an Artifact deck? Well, are you in a deck that casts spells?
Oh, it's great if you can clone it.
Oh, yeah, insane.
Now you have 2.
Now you're reducing it by 2 per.
Yeah, so you lose it for 4. Oh.
Clone deck, it gets really, really
clone
good.
deck.
Yeah.
And Temur's a great clone color.
Even if just Sakashima is is one of your partner commanders or something, you have to be in Temur, but...
Yeah, I think most of the time we're going to see this in 5-color decks, but it's a super cool little piece that we won't see as much because it is 3 colors.
Yeah.
All right, the big daddy of the set. Do you want to read this?
The opposite. This can go in any deck because it is colorless, and it is quite good. It is Ugin, Eye of the Storms. I'm sorry, Eugene. 7 mana for a legendary planeswalker. Ugin has 7 loyalty when it comes in. And it says, when you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors.
Okay.
So on cast, exile something.
Sick.
Whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. So just every colorless spell you cast while Ugin's out, you just
also exile something.
Yeah, the something has to be 1 or more colors, so
So like no lands, but like
it's probably gonna be hard to find targets.
Most other things.
Anything, by the way, that's got 1 or more colors. So yeah. +2 ability. You gain 3 life and draw a card, which would bring it up to 9 loyalty if you do that turn 1. Its 0 ability is add 3 colorless mana. Diamond, diamond, diamond.
Oh my god.
So cast this, remove a thing, 0 ability, get 3 colorless to cast the colors link to remove another thing.
And that's for 7 mana.
Yeah.
You get 2 things and exile 2 things.
And you cast something that's colorless.
Right,
So
yeah.
you get something. And then it has a ultimate, which is -11. Search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost.
Sure, that can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you -11, you're probably going to win. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's just like cast... Because
that's 3 turns with him only plussing and then minusing.
Yeah,
right?
which means you were probably winning anyway because you've exiled a million things already, and like the table will probably be like, yes, ultimate, please, and in this game because you're gonna win.
Out of here. Yeah. It also does ultimate immediately if you have a doubling season.
Yep.
So if you doubling season into this, you can ultimate right away.
One of those.
And so you can exile, then you get all the you exile a ton of stuff, and the game is over.
How many colorless cards do you need in your deck to run this?
1 Ugin.
You think you just run it by itself?
I think if you're in green and you're not very good at like disruption and just want like a big removal spell that you can sink mana into, I think this is like
fine.
It's like totally fine. Like if you're in a big mana green deck, I could see just playing this, and you probably want a couple. Like it's nice to do that.
You'll have some rocks and stuff anyway, but
this is like a super duper meteor golem.
Yeah, that's the thing I thought of too. It's like, wait a minute, let's look at Meteor Golem.
Yeah, a playable card.
Let's look at Meteor Golem. Okay, now let's look at Eugene. Look at Meteor Golem, back to Eugene. Now back to Meteor Golem. Now back to Eugene.
And one's a mythic, and one's a common uncommon.
But there's the same mana cost.
But like...
yeah, and when you frame it in that way, now Meteor Golem has some utility of blinking and reanimating and stuff. But still, this is 7 mana, but it can immediately give you a 3 mana rebate.
Mm-hmm.
So in some respects, you could think of it as 4. And if you do have a colorless spell, like obviously, I think if you've got 20 colorless spells, it's insane.
It's much better, yeah.
It probably should go in any deck that has that amount of colorless spells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like you said, you can make a case for it in any deck that's just planning to be able to cast any number of 7 drops.
Yeah, I mean, this card's great. Like, this is at the very floor in a deck that can cast it. You cast it, you exile something, and then you draw a card. And you have a Planeswalker that has 9 loyalty that they have to deal with.
It's just hard to kill no matter what, yeah.
That's a ton of damage that you have to do, and, like, next turn it's going to draw another card, right?
They have to kill it, though, because if you cast 2 colorless spells the next turn, it's over.
I mean, it's like... I think this card is quite powerful. It makes sense, like, Ugin's... He's one of the most powerful Magic characters.
All his other incarnations are also powerful.
They're all very good,
Yeah.
so it makes sense that this one is also very powerful. I think if you're running any amount of artifacts, like you said, 20 or more artifacts, I think this card becomes incredible. If you're in just mono red and you don't have access to like great card advantage and your removal isn't super solid, this card becomes incredible. Like you could build a deck around this card if you're a red deck. You're like, I'm a red artifact deck, but I don't have like that many colorless cards, but I'm going to throw in another 10 and play this card, and it's going to be bananas. Yeah, it's great.
It's very, yep.
My one question before we move on is, how does this rank to you on the Ugin scale? Like which Ugin is the most to least powerful?
Boy.
So there's 8 mana Ugin, that's the board wipe, and Lightning Bolt. There's 6 mana Ugin that reduces your colorless casting cost, and it removes stuff, and it makes bodies and draws you cards. Those are both really powerful cards that we play plenty of.
Yeah, they're all hard to rank. I think Spirit Dragon, I would still have it number 1. Mm-hmm. The board wipe will just get you out of situations that no other, the fact, anytime you have a board wipe stapled to something that's otherwise also that powerful, it's just great because it's like, even if I'm losing, this will have a chance to get me back by a lot.
Yeah.
But this might be the second best.
It's certainly the second highest ceiling, I think. Well, it has a highest ceiling. It definitely has a high ceiling. I think Ugin the Spirit Dragon has the best floor.
In the worst case scenario for you,
this will be better.
Yeah.
But even Ugin the Ineffable, which is a very powerful card,
really good,
is like,
and it costs 6, so it's
you're
got that going
it only gives you a 2 mana reduction. Where Ugin the Spirit Dragon, the new one Ugin the Eye of the Storm gives you the 3 mana back right away, and it
it removes something, but it does like weaken it a lot to do it. It's not a repeatable removal thing. But 6 mana versus 7, I would put it in the second seat. Where would you put it?
I think that's where I had it. I think it's still a little worse than Ugin the Spirit Dragon, can still go in like a ton of decks and feel really powerful. And this one requires a little bit more synergy, but has a higher ceiling.
7 mana versus 8. So
Yeah.
I think that line between Spirit Dragon and this one is pretty thin, though.
I agree.
Like, yeah. Somebody said, I talked to the time traveling supercomputer, and it actually said that the Eye of the Storms is better than Ugin. I would be like, okay,
Yeah, you're right.
that's not crazy.
Also, I think like this card is going to single-handedly bring Modern Tron back.
Oh, yeah.
So it is, because it's 7 mana, so it's going to fill the Karn Liberated spot. So it's not going to be a cheap card.
Yeah, and in Commander, there's this whole kind of space that I think of that exists, which is like, okay, in Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger is in there, and some other cards, and you're like, okay, given that this is the type of deck that's going to want some amount, usually like 3-ish, of that class of card, this now enters the discussion. And Ugin was in there, and Ulamog's in there, and a lot of the Eldrazi stuff is in there. And it's like, oh, this one, I'll put Eye of the Storms in there as filling that slot, just for a little bit of variety, and because it is basically as good.
Cool. All right, we're moving on. There is a blue dragon to talk about. This is Voracious Bibliophile.
What a highfalutin name.
He's a reader. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 dragon with flying and vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell with one or more targets, draw that many cards. Whenever you cast a removal spell, draw a card. Whenever you cast a blink spell, draw a card. Whenever you cast an aura, draw a card. Whenever you cast a targeted draw spell, draw a card.
Mystic Confluence was the first thing I thought of.
Draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
Bounce,
Get
draw
all
3.
the modes on it. Yeah.
Yeah, this card's sweet. I mean, it's really good with like targeted cantrips, like expedites. Like I can picture a million cards that this is good with. But the next question is just sort of like, okay, how many decks are there that like actually can use this thing? So like, how often are we going to see it?
Yeah. Like, how narrow is it really?
How narrow is it really? Like, you have to run, how many cards in your deck that trigger this thing do you want?
A lot. I mean,
like 20?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Which I don't think many decks have that many. They're very specific, the ones that do.
Right.
It'll go in those decks and be amazing.
Right.
But it's definitely not a card we're going to see a lot, because, yeah, just a lot of decks will only have like less than 10 cards that can trigger it.
It also includes counterspells, which is crazy. So if you have like a high number of counterspells, if you're running like 8 counterspells, and then you're running like another 8 removal spells, that's 16 right there.
Think about it.
So you can think about it. You probably want a few more than that. It is certainly a build around card. And in those decks, it's going to be one of the best cards in the deck.
Yeah, I don't think you build around this card. You've just built for other reasons, your deck is already doing that. And you go, okay, well, this card will pay me off for what that deck's already doing.
Yeah. If you're playing Orvar, gross.
Oh my God, it's so good in Orvar. We've talked about this, right? I took my Orvar deck apart a long time ago because it was already too good. But
I had one too, and
yeah.
I took mine apart. Yeah. R.I.P. Orvars.
Yeah, but if you still have yours together, this card's amazing.
Or Voracious Bibliophile. I did like look at my decks. I was like, okay, can this go in any of the decks that I have built right now? And it can go in Octavia. There's a lot of things that trigger it in Octavia because it runs a lot of the cantrips that target and give something evasion.
Yeah.
And that one just barely got to Octavia, has 26. So that's pretty good. I think I could probably put it in Octavia and it would feel good. But my other ones are like 3 and 16, which are just not high enough. So
16 is like getting close, but probably not quite there. Yeah, right. Bumbleflower is the only one I have really that has enough targeting to make it worth it. So yeah, it is narrow. It's
narrow, but in those decks, it's going to be sick. One more, a little green guy.
It is Warden of the Grove, 2 and a green for a 2/2 Hydra. At the beginning of your M step, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Whenever another non-token creature you control enters, it endures X, where X is the number of counters on this creature. So again, put X 1/1 counters on this creature that entered, or create an XX white spirit creature token. Okay, so if this creature has 4 counters, let's say, and you cast another creature, that new creature will endure 4.
So you either make an additional 4/4 or put 4 additional counters on it.
Correct.
This card's really sweet.
Yep.
I don't think it needs a lot to make it really sweet. At its floor, it's a card that like gets played in decks where it's just like you play it, you put a counter on it on an end step, then the next turn all of your creatures enter with an additional counter or an additional token.
Yep.
And then if you have additional +1/+1 counters for synergies where you can buff this thing up, then it gets exponentially better every turn.
Grumgully, Renata. We've seen cards like this, and they're generally pretty good. Anytime something enters, for the most part, put a counter on it as it comes in. And this can do that plus multiple counters after a couple of turns, or making tokens if that's what your deck wants to do. That's what I find interesting about this. 1/1 counter decks, this is going to be great.
Yep.
Token decks, this might also just be good as like, hey, just every creature kind of is going to come with a token now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Oketra's Monument get played in decks that don't use the reduction, just because whenever you cast a creature, you make a 1/1 is good.
Worth it, yeah.
And that's what this is, except for it gets better each turn. So now it's really good in both of those decks, and it's going to be slightly less like explosive if you're not buffing this +1 counter in some way, but it is just a good role player in token decks that want to be churning out plenty of tokens.
Yeah, and at 3 mana, I think it can be at that level of explosiveness.
Yeah,
it's
I think
gonna
so.
Feel a little incremental, but you get it out early enough that it's fine. And, you know, it would have been busted at 2, and then if you get up in 4 and 5, it needs to be a little bit better. So it feels like in a really nice spot, and I think we're going to see this card quite a bit. It's just going to do enough in enough types of decks that, like, it'll be annoying, too.
Yeah, where you're like, oh God,
it's
every
huge.
creature you enter, you have another chump blocker. Like,
Yeah,
it's really
it's
difficult to
big,
get through.
and you're getting a lot of stuff from it, and that advantage keeps growing. But do I want to remove that? Because, you know, it doesn't exactly end the game.
Right. It doesn't exactly end the game.
It will, but that's a little while from now.
Yeah.
And I really want to save my removal for the thing that kills me now. But then it's like, but then I let you have it for 3 turns, and
now
the
you have all
amount
these
you got
bodies.
off of it is like, maybe I should have killed it.
Yeah, I think this card's really neat and will be sneaky good in a lot of situations. Fly under the radar. All right.
All right.
Those are the ones that we're
Lot of
going to
cool
talk
stuff.
about for Tarkir. A lot of different cards that we covered. Let's start with our favorites.
Okay. I'll go first. Mine was Steward of the Harvest, which is the one that gives you all your creatures the abilities of whatever the lands are that you exiled from your graveyard.
Cool. Tricky. Neat.
Yeah. I think I like any card where I eventually am like, and a lot of other cool stuff is possible, but I don't have time right now to look into all of it. So it's going to be fun to just like, I don't know, when it gets played, people are going to do stuff and you're going to be like, well, that's cool.
Yeah. Some land is going to get printed and you're like, wait. Okay. You put the thing that makes your spells uncounterable underneath it.
There you go.
And now all of your creatures protect the next spell you cast.
Right. And you can untap them all, so then you can make all your spells uncounterable forever.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
As long as your opponents have a
And they're like, I play Golgari, man.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really.
Yeah, but I could. You couldn't if you had it. Anyway, yep.
All right. That one's sweet. I'm excited to see how I die to it. I think my favorite from this one is going to be the 8-mana Golgari Dragon
That
that
powerful.
reanimates some stuff. It's cool.
Colossal Grave-Reaver.
I'm always looking for different top ends in Sidisi. I like, and this is a very cool one that does exactly what the deck want to do. So I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, you can do a lot. Mm-hmm. All right, most powerful card in the 99.
We agreed on this one, but I do think there's 2 that are close. And so I'll let you answer first because this was the one that I thought of too.
Yeah, Herd Heirloom.
Yeah.
Which is the 2-mana rock with the upside of also being able to give something trample, and when it deals combat damage, draw a card. And of course, that mana is restricted by you can only cast creatures with it, but that is not a very high bar to clear for most decks. It's not very restrictive for a lot of decks. So
Yeah.
And as always, power, quote unquote, is a difficult thing to define because it can mean a thing at its most powerful, or it can mean what's best at its average power. And I think Herd Heirloom at its average power is that is a very high point for an average. But this card that you put down
Yes, this is
also has a high average power, I want to say, but at its most powerful, probably more powerful than Herd Heirloom.
Yeah, it's Ugin, Eye of the Storm. This is exactly. I was like, okay, what's the other side of power level? If we're talking about highest ceiling in this set, I think Ugin, Eye of the Storm is one of those cards that is going to end games on the spot. And
It's going to be a groaner for sure.
it is going to be a groaner. It's going to be a fun card to have on your side of the battlefield.
Yeah, but your opponent's going to go, ugh.
Okay, how can we get rid of this? You're going to exile my way to get rid of this? Great. Yep,
Great.
that
And
makes
then you're
sense.
everything you cast is going to X. Sweet.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
going to be really difficult to deal with because at any time you cast an artifact,
Yeah.
okay.
So I can't win, you say, but I'm not dead yet. Okay.
That's the Ugin way.
Yeah.
Peace, nothing.
Very strong, very strong.
It's very strong. And in the right decks, it's going to be bonkers. All right. To the listeners, what do you guys think about Tarkir Dragonstorm? Are you as excited about this set as we all are in the office? We had a very fun pre-release where that's all we've been talking about, honestly, is building new stuff from this. What new cards that we talked about today or that we didn't mention slot into your commander decks? I want to see how you're playing this. What are you doing with Steward of the Harvest?
Yeah.
What lands
what
are you
the cool
combining?
combos that you've come up with?
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about that. Please put those in the comments.
They're fetch lands, and they're also the land that you sacrifice to bring a land back from the graveyard.
Oh.
Is that good? Not really. We're working on it. We're working on it.
That's what I kept doing too. Okay, so you do that. Is that good? That's the question
It's
at the end
something.
of all. Yeah.
You're definitely doing something.
I don't know if it's good, but it will do things.
It's
yeah.
cool.
All right, if you want to pick up all these cool cards from Tarkir, Dragonstorm, or any other cards in Magic the Gathering's history, go to cardkingdom.com/command. They have a huge inventory, so they have the cards you're looking for in the version you're looking for, in the condition you're looking for. And the thing we love most about Card Kingdom is they are professional above all else. So they get you all your stuff. They get it in the mail super fast. They get it to your doorstep. It all comes in one package. It all is packaged professionally so that nothing got damaged. And great thing about dealing with like a big professional organization is if something does go wrong, they have a customer service department that is good at handling any issues. Like that's one of the things that you want in a company you're dealing with. If anything happens, they make it right. And we trust our own stuff to them. When we're making content, when we're doing game nights live, we know the Card Kingdom is going to get us what they say they're going to get us in the time they're going to get it to us, in the condition and everything like that. And so we can't give any higher endorsement than that. We just use them all the time.
Yep. And once those cards are in your hand, you got to keep them safe, keep them organized. Go to ultrapro.com/command. They've got all of the new Tarkir Dragonstorm stuff.
Yep.
If you're psyched about it, pick up a playmat, pick up a deck box. If you're building one of the cool new dragons, do that. But then also go over to the MTG Pro Shop and pick up.
Yeah, what's
stuff.
your favorite clan? They've got one for each one, or they've just got the dragon, the planeswalker symbol,
Yeah.
which is really
Jimmy
sweet.
had the Eshki one, which is really
Yeah.
cool. They've got everything that you need to be enthusiastic about a certain set or just to keep your stuff safe and organized and feeling good. Like Apex sleeves are just some of the best sleeves on the market. They're really, really great shuffle feel. They look really slick, and they're going to last a long time. So shop at Ultra Pro. We trust our collections to them, and you can too at ultrapro.com/command.
All right, big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone, which is Rachel Kendra, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Christopher Matista, Grav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Josh Murphy, Manson Lung, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and, of course, the ineffable, or should I say the Eye of the Storms, Jimmy Wong.
Jimmy Wong,
All right, everybody, we'll see you in the
Dragon
next
Master himself. Don't tell Brian.
I think Brian's the Dragon Master and Jimmy's the Dragon Lover.
He's the the Dragon fan.
Yeah.
Like Sarkin.
Just like Sarkin, actually. All right, everybody, see you next time.